Hey everybody, Stinger here. I want to invite you to a pretty cool podcast.
Watch this film. Be quite nice. Have a good time. Be very evil. You'll love that Danhausen.
Hey, this is Big Sexy Kevin Nash.
Yes, it is I, Big E, but more importantly, it is you.
And you might remember me from such YouTube greats as Being the Elite and Chris Daniels Almost Dies.
And if you're looking for the very best wrestling content, you better come to Good Mic Work Commentaries.
And I'm just going to tell you now, as a role model, you got to tune into this because if you also want to be a role model, you got to learn from the best.
We have a rapport, and we have been so close over so many years. This is not a cameo or a paid endorsement in any regard. This is a message of friendship.
Man, we met 20 years ago, 21 years ago now. Time is flying, isn't it?
I want to wish you all the best in your YouTube channel, and hopefully I can maybe make a special guest appearance on there sometime.
And I used to say, hey, Greg Morgan, and he used to say, please call me Greg, and I wouldn't do it.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Awesome YouTube channel. Now, if you've seen these videos before, you know what I'm talking about.
We would do verbal chain wrestling. You know, we'd be off in the yard, the schoolyard at recess.
And he's also a 40-year-old wrestling fan. That's a long damn time.
And we'd just be staring at each other, and he'd say, hammerlock. And I'd say, all right, I've reversed the hammerlock into a hammerlock of my own, then I put you in a headlock. And, you know, that would go on for hours.
He's not going to fill your head with bullshit. He's going to tell you real deal, what's up, and that's that.
Raw, Smackdown, NXT. This guy covers it all, my friends. I want you to go to his page, Good Mic Work on YouTube.
Check out Good Mic Work Commentaries on YouTube.
But we would have fun. We would run around. There would be a wooden hoop we would hit with a stick, and it would go down a hill.
I'm about to go and watch a few videos myself.
It's a very practical apparatus.
We're really lacking in the world right now with some people that have a freaking brain cell.
And then now look at him. He has more YouTube views and subscribers than I do, and I'm fine with it because I played such an integral role in his upbringing.
Don't you dare be sour.
We always talked about wrestling. He was a big Lou Thez guy, and of course I had an affectation for the Hackenschmidts.
Clap for Good Mic Work Commentaries.
This is RJ City, a wrestling rock on tour.
And feel the power.
Listen to the podcast, subscribe.
You are watching Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Just want to encourage all you guys to check out Good Mic Work Commentaries.
And if you don't, we're going to have a problem.
Do it!
Do it.
Do it now!
Thanks a lot for the encomium and the nice words about my father's Hall of Fame induction.
Hope our paths cross again sometime down the road. Would love to shake your hand again, and good luck on this podcast.
And you don't just watch it one time. You can rewatch every single one of them.
And now, Good Mic Work Commentaries and Greg Morgan presents the Winged Eagle Podcast.
Happy Saturday once again, everyone. What's going on? Welcome to your Winged Eagle podcast for September 11th, 2021. We are on the 20-year anniversary to the day of the 9/11 tragedies back in 2001, which I'm sure we will discuss a little bit here today. Probably going to open up with some of my memories of that, talk about WWE's Peacock special that aired yesterday on the September 13th edition of Smackdown from 2001, 2 days after the tragedies and all of that. So we will be getting into that. Otherwise, aside from that stuff, it's going to be a pretty loaded episode because we got a ton of news to get into. Last night's Smackdown from Madison Square Garden was just an amazing show. Hit a total home run last night, and that really super mega hot MSG crowd certainly didn't hurt WWE's Matters last night, and that was a really, really good, well put together show, and it makes you wonder why they can't do this shit all the time. But really good stuff there. Rampage was not half bad either. We got a lot of news regarding Kevin Owens and his apparent free agency coming up sooner than expected. Al Snow is a hero. Mick Foley takes WWE to task. Some revelations, take it with a grain of salt, by Meltzer as to what WWE had planned for Adam Cole if he was going to stick around. Very interesting developments there. Apparently was going to allow Daniel Bryan to go work the G1 as well, which was kind of interesting. We'll get into some of those contract negotiations. We'll talk about Dynamite and All Out numbers. Kenny Omega tops this year's PWI 500. And we'll get into the SmackDown and the Rampage results from last night. Talk about just the killer match, kick-ass match between Seth Rollins and Edge last night. Good Roman and Brock stuff. The Demon returned. Like I said, Rampage was taped after Dynamite in Cincinnati. That was centered around Andrade and Pac and Brian Pillman in the main event. And just lots of crap to get into, not to mention anything you guys want to discuss in the chat, questions you might have for me today, and whatnot. Thank you to everyone who was here and was waiting for me. I am going up an hour earlier than normal. Usually I go up at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Had to bump it up an hour because I got a busy day, and I'm going to be heading off to work here in a little bit, and I wanted to make sure we had enough time to get into everything we needed to discuss today. So I'm going to run through some Patreon shout-outs, talk to you guys in the chat, let you guys know what's planned on the channel for the rest of this weekend and the first 2 days of the week, and then we'll start getting into some news. We'll kick off with some 9/11 stuff, then talk Kevin Owens, and start rolling from there. So if you do me a favor, you know that little right below the screen here, there's that little like thumbs up thing kind of underneath the video. Click the one that goes up for me if you don't mind. I found that it helps. It's good to have people say they want to give it a thumb up. So that thumb up thing, click it for me. I would really appreciate it. You guys are the best, and thanks for being here. Hello in the chat to Josh, J. Lambo, Steven, Cerebrus Core, Charlie, Sam, Divine Ricks, thank you for the $10 super chat drop right off the bat. Hey, Greg, can you see a heel CM Punk and Bryan Danielson in AEW future? By the way, my girlfriend became a huge fan of yours. She subscribed to your channel as well. Well, that's awesome. Tell her thank you, and I'm glad you're both here. Glad to make another fan and listener through you. That's awesome. In terms of what Punk and Bryan can do in AEW in the future, I don't think anything is off the table. I can certainly see a heel turn by both because they both make excellent heels. Those two guys are a lot like Kevin Owens, a lot like Edge. They can really work either way and do them equally well. So at some point, you know, the honeymoon phase is going to wear off for CM Punk. You know, at some point he might have to go that route. I wouldn't doubt it. And who knows what they can do with Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson. I think for the immediate future, Danielson's going to be babyface, but, you know, they'll do anything. I don't think AEW is afraid. I don't think any of these things that would hold WWE back in history from turning somebody heel because of certain decisions or merchandising or whatever reason, they're just too chicken shit to do it. I don't think that's going to happen in AEW because the talent has got a lot more say. And if Danielson goes to AEW and says, look, I really want to turn heel, I think I'd fucking be great, they'll let him do it. We're in WWE, like, I don't know, you're selling a lot of those t-shirts, you know, it's different. So I think with AEW, nothing is off the table, which is good because we want every option possible. We got Ben in the house, Mike Maxon, Deshaun Robinson is here. What's up, man? Barry MK and How Weezy. 3 delicious, beautiful, handsome monkey wrenches in here. Glad you guys are here. Little Justin Lowe is in the house. Big J Zane, no. David Brown, the Iron Minotaur. What's up? Lincoln to Delta, Austin Olson, Mike, I got you already. Shell Shock, Transferring Heat, Mohammed, right on. All right, good enough for now. We'll start getting into some business here as people roll in. We got a big college football day going on right now, so not sure how that will affect the podcast today. If people are watching, just ready for football season. Of course, it kicks off in the NFL tomorrow. And speaking of tomorrow, should let you guys know what's going on the channel. Tomorrow, nothing is going on, actually. I have to take a day off. Was planning on releasing a retro classic pay-per-view review tomorrow, but I had to bump that to Tuesday just because of my busy work schedule this week. And since tomorrow is week 1 of the NFL, I actually kind of want to have some football games on tomorrow. I'm just going to chill, get some stuff done. I got a couple of things to do on the channel, some editing to do. I even have some recording to do. So I think tomorrow is going to be my day for that. So actually, for the first time in a while, there's going to be no video tomorrow on Sunday. A lot of times I'm coming up here doing watch-along streams or whatnot. We are going to pick up the watch-alongs again 1 week from tomorrow. The next Sunday, we're going to do Unforgiven 2001, which is when Kurt Angle won the title. We're going to watch that one next week. But tomorrow, there will be no live stream. I got to get some stuff done and just kind of need a personal day to get organized. And then we'll be back Monday night for the Raw review. And then on Tuesday is when you're going to get the WCW Great American Bash 1989 review. I will probably premiere that sometime Tuesday morning, so it'll be available on demand anytime you want to watch it after Tuesday. So you're going to get me 3 out of the next 4 days here, just minus tomorrow. So keep that in mind if you're scoring at home. And next week we'll be picking up again with the watch-alongs on Sunday. But part of the reason why during the fall we're not going to do a watch-along every Sunday is because I am now up here every Wednesday doing AEW Dynamite watch-alongs. Last week was the first week of it. Right after All Out, we had a great time watching Dynamite, and I think it'll get better. The audience will grow. So if you want to hang out and watch some good wrestling every Wednesday, come right here to the channel, and we're up live watching Dynamite. Of course, you're going to have to watch it on your own. Just follow along with me. I don't show the screen or anything like that, but it's a really fun thing to do, and we used to do it back in the day for Raws, and we're going to try to do it for AEW now and see how that does. So since we're doing a watch-along now every Wednesday, might have to just reduce the amount of Sundays that I do them for classic reviews and whatnot. Plus, like I said, it's football season, and here in the States, a lot of people like to pay attention to that. So Sundays will just be staggered, but in terms of the other video days, you've got me You've got me Monday, Wednesdays, Saturdays every week. Monday for Raw review, AEW Dynamite watch-alongs on Wednesday, and right here every Saturday for the Winged Eagle podcast. That's the schedule we're going to have going into the fall. Likely no videos on Tuesdays or Thursdays unless some big news story drops and I come up here and do a standalone video or whatnot. And like I said, there will be staggered Sundays because we're doing pay-per-views once a month for WWE, and then we've got Full Gear coming up, and we like to do classic stuff as well. So Sundays are just every now and then type of thing. So anyway, keep that in mind. That should do it for the pleasantries and all the bullshit on the channel there. Let me go over here and shout out all of the current supporters on Patreon. A few new ones came in this week. Would like to thank Jordan Hendricker. Thank you for joining us this week as a patron on the Patreon page, along with Connor Delaney. Thank you guys and welcome aboard. Divine Ricks, you're here as well. Ryan, JJ Legg, Nikita Abalakin. I probably mispronounced that, but that's just kind of what I do. Chris Miner, Super Fluffy Toaster, Deshaun Robinson, J Smooth 99, Martin Can, Alex Dredge, Apron Bump Podcast, Alan Carter, Brandon Yelverton, Nick Musser, Jimmy Anderson, K-Dogs, Kennel, Ryan Y, Devlin Husband, John Redifer, Claudio Clavedetcher, Daniel Rodriguez, Josiah Blevins, Barry MK, Scott Moss, Domanian, Ewell, John Riffle, Michael Cuomo, Naveed, Keith Salyers, Blake Moran. Thank you as always, guys. Anybody who pledges $10 or more per month or has $200 or more lifetime gets an extra shout out down in the description below, along with all of your other links. My Twitters, my Facebooks, my everything is down there in the description. Check it out. Hang out down there, have a beer, come back up and finish listening to the podcast. Let's start getting into stuff. Let me knock out this other super chat real quick before we do, though. From Clofix C, thank you very much for that super chat. Dan Lambert is a promo god. Pillman Jr., the future. Dan Lambert, I fucking hate that guy, but he is a really good promo, which is why I hate him, because he is a really good promo, and he's a good heel, and I just hate those masculine douches. They're just fucking horrible. But he's really good, and he plays his role really well there. And I'm interested to see like how big of a storyline that becomes. Right now, it's kind of an underneath deal with Ethan Page and Scorpio. They've been fucking around with Lance Archer a bit, but they haven't like gotten into the main event stuff. Like they haven't targeted CM Punk and say, "Hey, you were a failure in my world" or whatever, you know. So we'll see if they ever get to that point. Pillman Jr., I really like Brian Pillman Jr. Not ready for the main event as much as I thought Rampage was pretty awesome last night, being in Cincinnati and having Pillman Jr. and Moxley close out the show. Back in the day, like when Dean Ambrose was kind of getting his footing in WWE, coming off the previous version of Jon Moxley, a lot of people were comparing him to Brian Pillman, you know, in terms of being a loose cannon. There was a lot of Ambrose-Pillman comparisons back in the day. You guys probably remember that. So to see, you know, Moxley, who's I think is a Cincinnati guy, he's from that town, out there with Pillman Jr. was just a nice, really good feel-good moment. However, that match, as nice as it was for the crowd, for the Pillman family, and I was a huge Brian Pillman fan. I'm actually old enough to remember his career, and nobody's a bigger Pillman fan than I am. However, I probably still would have put Andrade and Pac in the main event. Pillman, as good as he is, he's just not ready. You know, Pillman is still extremely green, and you know, when you look at just two smooth, seasoned pros like Pac and Andrade, Pillman ain't anywhere close to that. So good outing for him last night. Loved that he won with the springboard clothesline. Loved the entire moment. Warmed my fucking heart. But being on the same match as a pay-per-view match that was bumped, you know, I probably would have stuck Andrade and Pac in the main event. That's just me, though. Still thought it was a good Rampage overall, and love me some Pillman. Dude is a dead ringer for his dad. It's crazy how much he looks like him. So, anywho, Sam, I wish I did watch more Impact, but I don't. That takes care of the shout-outs, the Super Chats, the Patreon stuff. I let you guys know what's going on this week on the channel, and now we can start rolling into news. I think we should open up here today just by mentioning the anniversary of 9/11. This anniversary comes every year. It comes and goes. Everybody acknowledges it, but this one is a big one. 20 years ago, the tragedies of September 11th. When the trade towers came down, planes were crashing into the Pentagon. It was a fucking mess. I remember this like it was yesterday. I was 24 years old, and I had just moved down to the beach. I've told this story before. I just figured I'd get into it because we always have to mention like where we were type of thing. And we all know where WWE was. As a matter of fact, they ran the 9/11 special. I think it was entitled Never Forget yesterday on the network. I got a chance to check that out really late last night. It was only 30 minutes long, so it was a really easy watch. And it was basically just chronicling the show in Houston 2 days later on the 13th, the first Smackdown show, and the fact that they were the first public gathering of any kind around the country. And they had a little bit of footage from the show, and they interviewed Paul Heyman, who was there, Lillian Garcia, who, of course, probably had one of the best renditions of the national anthem in history, in my opinion. Vince McMahon, obviously, was interviewed, and Stephanie was as well. These are all kind of newer interviews for the purposes of this little mini-doc, and they talked about the decision to do it. Edge was also on this, and some of the talent was sharing what it was like to wake up and see that news. Some of them were just going about their day as usual, going to get something to eat or going to work out and heading to the arena, and just like the streets were just empty and dead, and it was like post-apocalyptic. And Elizabeth was telling me the same thing. When she was going to work, there was like nobody on the roads and stuff. And that's one memory I don't have, because on September 11th, I spent my entire day inside. I only left one time, and that was to walk across the street to the little local convenience store with my friend to pick up some booze, because we were just going to sit on the couch and get drunk and just watch this madness unfold. I know that sounds immature, but I didn't know, as a 24, I didn't know how else to fucking process this shit. It was just surreal. I can't even explain to you guys how weird it was to live through this live. And a lot of, you know, my audience and stuff is only in your 20s, maybe early 20s. Some of you weren't even born, or were very, very young, or just have no memories of this at all. And if you were a kid, this was all happening in the morning, so I think schools were in, right? So most kids would have been at school. But, you know, I don't remember if they sent kids home early or what the fuck. I know they did in New York, but, you know, there's a big security concern, and all the planes were grounded, and it was just nuts. So, you know, from my perspective, I just remember Raw the night before. They did show on the 9/11 special on WWE. They showed the previous night's Raw, some highlights of that, and how everything was just kind of fire. And you got one thing we always forget to mention whenever discussing the invasion angle is that 9/11 happened right in the middle of it. You know, the invasion angle had its problems. It was missing some big key players on both sides, you know, and it was not very well thought out or executed. However, 9/11 also, you know, put a big, you know, hole in that, because then everybody had to come together and show solidarity and that sort of thing. And then, I think dropping the ball and not putting the belt on Kurt Angle at SummerSlam, and then they turned around and did it in Unforgiven, the show they're going to do a watch-along of next Sunday here on the channel. A lot of that, I think, was done in part of 9/11, and they wanted to give the fans that feel-good moment for this American hero. I mean, patriotism was at an all-time high. And a lot of people don't forget, cancel culture was really invented during 9/11. What happened to the fucking Dixie Chicks and French fries and freedom fries and all this shit? Go back and look at some of that and, find your cancel culture right there. And it was actually coming from the other side. The people that hate cancel culture were the ones that pretty much invented it back in 9/11. And it was a very dicey time. It was a scary time. And for me, as somebody in his mid-20s, I hadn't really experienced anything crazy in life yet. Everything was pretty good. We had peace during my childhood. The Vietnam War was wrapping up when I was born and shit. But, I guess we had the Gulf War. But after that, it felt like things were relatively normal. The worst thing in the world that was going on was that Bill Clinton got his dick sucked. And if those were our biggest problems, I thought things were pretty good in my infantile brain at that time. So for something like that to hit, it really changed your perspective and grew you up and matured you quickly because you're like, oh, this is no joke. And plus, even at that time, I remember in 2001, people were talking about, wow, all this technology we have, we were able to capture these burning buildings on fire. Think about if that happened now. Even back then, we were getting angry. It looks like something out of a movie, because your brain hadn't seen anything like that in real life before. Any sort of crazy catastrophe generally prior to then wasn't caught on film. Some of it was, but nothing to that degree. So even then people were saying, wow, in 2001, everybody's got footage of all this shit happening, and people were calling from inside the building and talking to their families as the buildings were collapsing. Well, imagine if that was now. Imagine if everybody had an iPhone. Imagine how many death videos would be uploaded to the cloud of people literally dying while recording on their phone. And then sent it to the interwebs and it's available. How many different perspectives, some inside perspectives we would have gotten from people filming shit on their phone. It would have been even gnarlier than what it was. And it was pretty damn graphic, watching people have no choice but to jump from a building that's a mile fucking high to their death, knowing there's just no way out, had to be terrifying. So, that was a day that I think really kind of woke a lot of people up, and it woke me up saying, oh, life isn't just this like easygoing fairy tale, because I was living in La La Land. I had a great job. I loved where I live. I was living at the beach. I didn't feel like there was any problems in the world other than the big blowjob of Bill Clinton. And other than that, I was like, things are all right here. And then, just like that, crazy presidential election in 2000, one of the most bizarre things to ever happen. Bush gets in office, this shit happens, then we attack Iraq, we find ourselves in a whole new war, and it was just a snowball effect that just, changed us a lot, and that day was one of the craziest things I've ever seen. And like I said, I always tell the story. I've told the story before. Everybody asks what I was doing or whatever. I had just moved down to the beach. I had relocated in North Carolina. I wanted to go get a kind of new chapter, new town, new job, new life, and I really wanted to live at the beach. So I went and found myself a bartending job on a little tiki bar, and I just started working there a few months, and I watched Raw the night before. I did my hotline report. Back then I was still doing that, and then just went to sleep. And I always stay up super late and sleep super late. That's always just kind of been my style because I've been in the restaurant business my whole life. So I don't know what time all this shit was happening, 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, but I'm sleeping. And back then, it's not like we had cell phones. I didn't have a cell phone yet. So my phone is ringing, and I'm not answering it because my phone is in the living room, and I'm sleeping, and whoever it is, I'm not really interested in talking to them at 9 o'clock in the morning or whatever it was. And nothing happens the first time, then the phone rings again. And it's my friend. My answering machine picks up, and it's one of those answering machines where you can hear it, wherever you are in the house. And the machine picks up, and my friend's on the other line going, dude, you might want to wake up. She knew I was sleeping. She goes, wake up. You need to wake up now. Turn the TV on. Something weird's going on. If you don't get up in like 10 or 15 minutes, I'm coming over and knocking on your door. So I immediately kind of roll out, and by the time I get to the TV and turn it on, I'd only had it on for like less than 5 minutes. And that was when, and I'm like, holy shit, look at this smoldering fucking tower. And that's when the other plane came crashing right through it. And I don't recall which station I was watching, ABC, NBC, whatever the fuck I was watching. I don't remember. But wherever I was watching it, the second plane had faked out the newscasters. And so when the second plane hit, one person's like, here's a replay of what happened earlier on. And then somebody in the background's like, no, it isn't. That's another plane. And then you can hear like the gasps, like the holy shit. Like we weren't sure if it was deliberate before this. Once that second plane hit, it's deliberate. Then you hear stories about the FBI investigating hijacked planes, and the shit was on. Hour or so later, half an hour later, one crashes into the Pentagon. Another one was coming after the White House or the Capitol building before it crashed when the passengers tried to take control. It was a fucking mess, man. We've never had a time where like all the planes came out of the air. You know, we grounded everything. It was just a crazy time. So after I started watching all this, I just didn't know what to do. I literally sat there. I didn't eat anything hardly all day. My friend showed up about an hour later. She knocked on the door. She came in. We sat there and watched, for about 2 hours, and then kind of looked at each other and was like, you want to get drunk? I'm like, yeah. So we just walked outside, walked across the street to a little convenience store. I mean, it's still summertime. I'm just in my flip-flops and shorts and just kind of walking out. And they got a little TV on in the convenience store, like in the corner. And the guy, it was black and white, and the guy's just like watching it. And we were just kind of like, can you believe this shit? And I was like, here's 12-pack and 2 bottles of wine. And we paid for it and went and just sat on the couch and, and drank. That's not something I would do now. If a tragedy like this happened, I'd probably just sit there and not move at all. But like back then I was like, I don't know what to do. Let's just get wasted, So it was a crazy time, man. Just so sad. So many lives lost, and pretty incredible. And puts it in perspective too, especially in the middle of COVID and stuff, when you think about how many lives are lost here. And how many people are so anti, like a mask and vaccination, and anti anything that would help protect other people. Where back then it felt like we were a little bit more together. I mean, there was a very big pro-war push going on. The media was very much in favor of going out and retaliating because people were mad and people were pissed and they wanted blood and they wanted revenge. And it was just a very different time. And I think overall just really, really changed us as a nation. And here it is 20 years later. And every year goes by, I always say, damn, I can't believe it's been that long. I can't believe it's been that long. Now it's been 20 years. And it's still like a lot of stuff with wrestling that I always talk about. This is something that's just extremely vivid in my memories. I remember a lot of details from that day, and and the following days as well, where I remember very little before it. So it's crazy. But anyway, thoughts and condolences out to everybody who lost their lives that day, and those who might have family. Maybe somebody in this chat knows somebody that perished on 9/11 or was in the buildings or whatever. I had a friend that was supposed to be in the World Trade Center area that day but didn't go. That's the closest. And I had another friend whose mom was a flight attendant. Actually, the girl I was dating at the time, her mom was a flight attendant, and she wasn't even in the air. And I think it's Seth MacFarlane was famously supposed to be on a 9/11 plane, and he overslept and missed his flight. I mean, there's probably more cases like that. So, and in WWE's case, I know Zelina Vega, who we'll talk about here in a little bit, her tag team match last night from Smackdown was bumped because they ran out of time or had some time issues, so they had to scrap a couple of segments, one of them being that women's tag team match. Well, Zelina Vega's dad died in 9/11, and I think last night was going to kind of be a pretty big night for her. She even went out of her way to get some new gear made. I think she's really excited about it. So the fact that match got scrapped, I think that was kind of sad for her. But as I'll talk about later on, shit happens, man. It's nothing intentional. So feel bad for her. But yeah, in WWE, I think she's the first wrestler that I can think of that's had a story like this where they've had a close family member that died in 9/11. So anyway, that's crazy. Just figured we had to, have some sort of tribute there to 9/11. And like, if you haven't watched the Peacock show, or the network documentary on 9/11, check it out. It's a good 30-minute watch. It's a slightly depressing, but it's also kind of nice to see, what they went through and the decisions that were made. And WWE loves to be very, very patriotic. They love to pat themselves on the back and shit like that. I found it interesting and happy that they didn't show Stephanie McMahon's comments from that night. Just extremely, just tone-deaf, fucked up shit that she said about how this was her second 9/11 because the first one was when her dad got indicted, by the government or whatever. I'm like, come on. You need to shut your face. Anyway, yeah, 9/11. There you go. 20th anniversary. We'll move on from that and start getting into some actual wrestling news now. Let me knock out the super chat from Deshaun Robinson. Thanks, dude, for the $5, and good to see you back As a born and raised New Yorker, I was 4, and I was with my mom at her job in Brooklyn. And I remember Manhattan being a giant smoke cloud. Crazy thing to see. I bet it was, man. To be able to see that in person. I have a lot of friends that lived in New York City. A lot of YouTubers do. And to be somewhere in the city in eyesight of the World Trade and to look through your window and see it on fire had to be a crazy sight to see. And then on top of that, when the buildings came down, WWE ran a show in Madison Square Garden right in the beginning of October, and the rubble pile was still smoldering even a month later, when they were running that MSG show. So it took a long time to, clean that up and to rescue as many people as they can and recover as many bodies as they can. And, and then Bill took us forever to get that new tower built, but there's a great 9/11 tribute. I would love to go to Ground Zero one day. I've never been, and kind of see what they've done in terms of, the tribute and what it looks like. It would probably be a pretty, cool and humbling thing to see. That's for sure. So I need to get up there and check it out. Oh, I'm sure. Oh, yeah, there's lots of 9/11 conspiracy theories. No, I don't entertain many conspiracies at all. Not really. Anywho, let's move on, get into some wrestling news now. For those of you who are here, do me a favor, that little thumb up thing below the screen, tap it and make the number go up by 1 digit. I'd appreciate that if you don't mind. Hook this video up with a like. Let's talk about Kevin Owens. Figured we'd open up with him because there was some news that was reported this week by our friends over at Fightful Select regarding Kevin Owens' contract. Now, apparently his contract is up earlier than we expected, not earlier than when WWE expected. I think a lot of fans mistook this for a situation where, like Adam Cole, where they didn't realize the contract was coming up. It's not that. It's just that most people thought his contract ran further than what it did. So this makes Kevin Owens apparently a free agent as of January 2022. Probably the end of January 2022. Kevin Owens has also fed into these rumors by doing things like tweeting out the coordinates of Mount Rushmore, which of course was the former faction that himself and the Bucks and Adam Cole were in back in the day. And he even changed his bio to Almost There, and the Young Bucks changed their bio to There. So they are all teasing a lot here. I'm surprised, actually, that Kevin Owens, if his contract is not up until January, that he's really out there tweeting these type of things, knowing what WWE could do to him if they know he's going to leave, unless he's already told them, unless he's like, hey, just so you know, don't even bother giving me a contract because I'm not going to sign any sort of an extension. I'm going to leave. And maybe he's just trying to give them the common courtesy of letting them know what his plans are. But there's a lot of time between now and January. His mind could easily be changed. But I found this report really, really interesting because it was just a few podcasts ago. I think we mentioned it on back-to-back nights. I was talking about Kevin Owens. I'm like, when you look at some of the people that are starting to jump, Danielson and Cole and Punk is there now. Kevin Owens seems like a guy that's just a perfect fit for AEW because, he's an indie guy. He made his name outside of WWE. He came into WWE, had great success, but maybe not even as much success as the fans feel like he should have. So, him going to AEW, he can do great things. In WWE, everything is so staggered. Sometimes he's involved in top storylines. Sometimes he's just playing flat out off of TV. Sometimes he's a heel. Sometimes he's a face. It just depends on what WWE's mood is, is what he's going to do. And you can only do that for so long. He's just, he's spinning his wheels. He's featured a lot and everything there. He's got a good job, makes good money, all of that stuff. But in terms of, what he can do and be a part of really fun angles and storylines, man, all new, fresh set of shit you can do in AEW. Plus, like Adam Cole, he's got so much history with so many guys there that it would be so easy to pick that back up and to put Kevin Owens and his ring ability and his promo ability in that group, of already well-established stars now in AEW, I think would just be fucking awesome. And I was really hoping that whenever his contract was up, I was thinking it was year or two. I'm like, man, whenever it's up, I would really like to see Owens go over there. He could go back to being Kevin Steen, just like Danielson, or Brian went back to Danielson with no problem. Should be very seamless. And I think it would be awesome. However, there's also the possibility that Owens is just fucking with people. He knows the report is out about his contract, so now he's going to make people think this shit, and maybe he has every intention of staying with WWE. I don't know. Now, Kevin Owens, if I'm Kevin Owens, it's a situation similar maybe to Adam Cole or maybe even to Daniel Bryan, or to both of them, in that I think he should definitely leave, but not necessarily because he's being mistreated. First of all, I definitely think it's an absolute crime that Kevin Owens never had another world title run beyond that great epic victory he had in 2016. One of my favorite Raw main events in history was when Triple H helped him win the title, and the look of disbelief, the look of, shock on his face made fans on the internet speculate that maybe WWE didn't smarten him up to the finish, and maybe they legitimately surprised him with that. That's how good his performance was, is that you had the fans thinking it was a shoot. And, I was like, man, I'm so glad they did that. They had a terrible tragedy happen at SummerSlam with Balor getting injured and coughing up the title. But you talk about landing on your feet. They did it with, if you can't give the one new NXT guy one new call up the title, give it to the next best thing. They did that, and he held the title until he ran into Goldberg. And I cannot believe, based on his work, that they never gave him another opportunity at the title. Now, with that all being said, I don't believe that Kevin Owens has been mistreated or is in an abusive relationship or anything like that. WWE features him a lot. He's had high-profile pay-per-view matches his entire run there. He's very rarely left in catering. Sometimes he is, but for the most part, he's involved in big shit. He's got big WrestleMania matches under his belt, recent WrestleMania matches against guys like Seth Rollins and whatnot. He had Roman Reigns beat. He had Roman Reigns' number earlier on in the year in that title program, but, Roman was able to survive. And every time he's on TV, he's always doing something entertaining. He's entertaining on the Kevin Owens show. He's entertaining on commentary. He can still have good matches. His promos are great. WWE likes him. So with Owens, I think him, if he does decide to leave, with him, it's going to be a situation where it's not because, he's mistreated or he hates WWE or anything like that. It's just there's nothing else for him to do there. He's just got mountains of new shit he can do in AEW, where in WWE, if he resigns, he's going to be doing largely the same thing that he's doing now. Now, if all he cares about is getting a paycheck, then that might be just fine. But, this is a guy that's also now entering veteran stage of his career. He's got a family, and AEW is extremely attractive to established talent like that because their road schedule is a lot less. You're not going to have to be on the road. You're going to be paid comparable, if not better money, or at least equal money to WWE most likely. And why wouldn't you? And plus your friends are there and everybody you've worked with before are there, and the ability and the opportunity to have some creative freedom to where you're not going to be doing anything that just doesn't make any sense, because that's what you were told you were going to do when you got to the building that day. You got a little bit more input, you got a little bit more say, and you can help maybe creative teams, writers, bookers, whatever, help understand who your character is, because in WWE it feels like these writers, we just had that writer that didn't know the champion's name. Just to say that again out loud fucking makes my blood boil. So it will just be a lot different for someone like him. So like Cole, like Danielson, if he were to jump to AEW, I think Kevin Owens will have no axis to grind versus WWE. I don't see any reason for him to get on the mic and cut a promo about how fucked up that place is, and how toxic it is or anything like that, because he was treated well, paid well, featured regularly, and usually in semi-main to top positions. Yes, he didn't have as many title runs as we wanted, but he also wasn't treated like Cesaro, who's just, another guy that's just been horribly mismanaged. So I think Owens is a situation where he's probably going to choose to leave because of creative stuff. What he can do in AEW is much more exciting than probably what he'll do in WWE. So that's my take on it. So he's going to be another guy that's going to come in and he's going to kind of kill that narrative of all these guys do is bash WWE. Not really, as we've now seen. People are starting to jump there for completely different reasons, not money or anything like that. A lot of the stuff is creative, personal happiness, and a fun and exciting, pleasant workplace where you're not walking on fucking eggshells around a crazy, cuckoo 75-year-old man. You're actually there with your friends, having a good time, living the dream. Dream job. I can understand why that's very attractive. That's how they're attracting this talent. Because if it comes down to a bidding war, or anything like that, these companies, it's not like WCW. This is completely different. You're going to have to attract talent in other ways, and AEW is attracting that talent by producing good TV and having wrestlers say, ooh, that looks fun. I want to go do that. where back in the day, the only thing that was, really competing with WWE was Ted Turner's wallet. Tony Khan and the Khan family are very rich, but so is WWE. There's not going to be a situation where WWE is going to look at a contract offer and say, oh, we just can't match that. If they want somebody bad enough, they will pay that person. That's why Brock is there. So it's never going to come down to money between these two companies. It's not going to be the money that's going to do the outbidding here. It's going to be, where is the more attractive place to work? What's better for me? What's better for my family? What's better for my schedule? What's better for my personal happiness? What's better for my creative, freedom? What's better for my career? Those are the type of decisions now that are going to, I think, factor in largely, more than anything else, even above money, into whether to sign with one company or the next, because I think from a financial perspective, they're on equal footing. The money that one company is going to offer a guy is never going to be 2 or 3 times more than what the other is willing. You're never going to hear that story. Where back in the day, Vince was going check to check. He did not have the money to compete with Ted Turner. Why did Hall and Nash leave? Because they were paid triple what Vince could pay them. That's not going to happen now. So talent is going to have to choose other reasons. They're going to get paid either way. Both companies are willing to pay them, as we saw with Daniel Bryan and Adam Cole. Both offered good deals. Both offered a lot of money. Both offered, even creatively, WWE was willing to bend on some stuff with Daniel Bryan, and both of those guys still chose to go to the other company. Apparently, WWE did make a contract offer to CM Punk. He chose to go over there. Andrade asked for his release so he could choose to go over there. Now Kevin Owens is going to find himself in a contract negotiation, and he's probably going to choose to go to the other company. So this is a lot of guys jumping ship. These are not cast-offs. These are not WWE firings that AEW is just catching in a net. These are people actively choosing to go to one company over the other. So all these anti-AEW narratives, just the ex-WWE bitter guys or WWE's cast-offs, that ain't true. Never really was, but now it's proven that it's not true. I always thought it was an asinine and ludicrous and incorrect observation, but now, this really solidifies it, is that just looks like a more fucking fun place to work, period. That's why dudes are going there. So Kevin Owens is going to be offered a new deal by WWE. We'll see what he does. If they want, like I said, if they want him bad enough, maybe they will double Tony Khan's money. All right, fine. AEW is willing to give you all of this. We can't give you your friends. We can't promise you title runs or anything like that, but we'll just pay you double. Then he might have a decision to make. But I don't think it's ever going to come to that, because WWE also has bottom lines that they want to meet. And as we saw with Braun Strowman, they had buyer's remorse, paid him over $1 million a year, and it's like, we don't want that. You're released. So in WWE, it's not even that good if you can take them to the cleaners for a bunch of money, because that just makes things even worse if you're not living up to their expectations because their creative team fucked you up, then they could cut you. And it's just not a safe place to be, I don't think. I just wouldn't feel comfortable there. Where if I'm a top talent or something in AEW, I know that what I'm going to be doing is going to be creatively satisfying or even personally satisfying. And I hope he jumps. I really do. A little bit of follow-up, too, on his BFF, Sami Zayn. Apparently, he's got some time left on his deal. So these are kind of reversed here. Kevin Owens' deal was up earlier than folks had thought, and Sami Zayn's deal is up later than folks thought. I guess apparently people were under the assumption that Zayn's deal was up this fall, which is like right now. But apparently he was injured for a while there in the pandemic. There could have been, and I think there was, some contract restructuring with some talent. But apparently he's got probably a good year or more left, which is a shame, because could you imagine if Owens and Zayn went over there as well? Eventually, all of these type of wrestlers I think will be there. I think Owens will go. I think Zayn will definitely go. And unfortunately, I would love to find Cesaro over there, but I think he's got some years left on his deal, as he did recently re-sign something, I believe. So a lot of those talents that came in and were a big part of NXT, and that those big indie names that WWE signed, I think those are the guys that, are better suited for AEW. So Cole, Bryan, Punk, Owens, guys like that. AEW is going to be for them, and hopefully eventually we'll get all of those guys there. And we'll see how they fare and how they can compete with WWE. Apparently their new developmental philosophy of basically just doing a wrestling diva search and just finding good-looking people and teach them to work. We'll see how that goes. Want to shout out Al Snow. My God, dude's a hero. Apparently, TMZ was reporting over the weekend or a couple days ago, he he saved a kid in Florida from a riptide at the beach. He started getting dragged away, and Al Snow had said that he knew he just had a couple of seconds. He didn't think the lifeguard was going to make it in time. He jumped in the water and saved the kid from getting swept away out to sea, which is just awesome because we know how dangerous those things can be. I've luckily never been, I've swam a lot in the ocean, especially when I was younger. I was fearless, man. I would go so far out there. I didn't care if there was whales, sharks, or whatever. I would swim past the pier, if I was out in the ocean, where now I don't do that anymore. But, man, you get caught up in one of those riptides, man, they can suck you right in. And, of course, wrestling was dealt a horrific tragedy just a couple of years ago with Shad Gaspar losing his life in that same situation. So Al Snow saving a kid's life is just awesome. I think he took a picture with the kid and everything, which was really nice. And, thank God, because that kid would have definitely died had it not been for Al Snow. So we just want to show Al Snow from some love. He is the fucking man. While we're on the subject of Kevin Owens and AEW and all that stuff, let's just briefly talk about Adam Cole real quick. And of course, he's now in AEW in the Elite, and take this with a grain of salt, but Meltzer was reporting in the latest Observer that when Adam Cole had that meeting with Vince McMahon and they discussed, money and stuff, he was offered a pretty good deal. Now, there were also some plans or some ideas pitched for what Adam Cole would do when he would go to the main roster, because we did know that if Adam Cole was going to re-sign with WWE, he'd be going to the main roster. That was the point. So that was why we all felt that AEW would be the place for him, because why in the fuck would Adam Cole want to go to the main roster so they can stick a Darth Vader helmet on him? But even worse, they wanted him to be apparently a manager for Keith Lee. There was even some talk of potentially having to change his name because of Michael Cole, because God forbid we have two people with the same last name. Nikki is now ASH because of Karrion Kross, and then Adam Cole was going to be Adam Miller because of Michael Cole. What the fuck, WWE? How stupid do you think we are? You don't think these fans can handle two people with the same last name? Over in AEW, they have it a bunch of times, don't they? Adam Page, Ethan Page, Brian Cage, Christian Cage. And there's at least two or three other examples. You can hit me with them in the chat. That shit's infuriating. Now, again, this is Meltzer, so grain of salt. But if that was even talked about, no wonder this guy fucking left. Could you imagine Adam Cole sitting there listening to Vince, if this was even pitched to his face, who knows? And just be like, change my name? Okay. You want to be manager for Keith Lee? I'm the size of Keith Lee's leg. You know that, right? You want me to be his manager? I'm really good in the ring. You should see me wrestle. I wrestled once. I had this match against Ricochet. It's pretty good. You might want to watch it. NXT a couple years ago. And Vince is like, we're going to change your name to Adam Tiddlywinks, and you're going to fucking manage Keith Lee. Like, no wonder, man. They are so ridiculously, stupidly out of touch. It almost just makes my asshole hurt, because this is the type of shit that just, and again, it's Meltzer. I'm not reporting this as fact. But if any of this stuff is even true, no fucking wonder he jumped ship. And, I was kind of having an argument with somebody on Twitter the other night, too, that they were kind of insisting that money was at the forefront of this. And I'm like, no, it's not. These guys it's never going to come down to money right now. There's been other times in history where money's been a big factor. It's not going to it might come down to money every now and then. Maybe Brock came down to money. Brock's probably like, Vince is always going to pay me. I've got loyalty to Vince. But when it comes to some of these other guys, when you're being told, that this is, hey, we're going to change your name and make you a manager. Yeah, see ya. I don't give a fuck what they're paying me. They can pay me in fucking cornflakes, and I'm going over there. It doesn't matter. So I think that that's going to be how AEW is going to be able to attract this talent. Number one, being able to compete on a financial level with Vince, which they can. And number two, offering a better workplace. And that's what they're doing better. Eons better than WWE right now. Will that change in the future? Maybe. AEW is 2 years old. 15 years from now, there might be internal turmoil, just like in WWE. Because back in the day, during the Attitude Era, one of the reasons why WWE was able to overtake WCW was because of their team-like mentality. They were in a war, this company wanted to bury them, and they were fighting back. And they banded together to defeat WCW. But then once that ended and WWE was the only game in town, and that morale kind of disintegrated away a little bit to where now look at it. Now they're the very same thing that they used to criticize. Now they have the very same philosophy that WCW does, rewriting shows last minute, tearing scripts up, shit like that. They're so disorganized, they're so all over the place, and nothing they do at all is creatively fulfilling virtually at all, aside from a couple of their top angles. So, when you think about all that stuff, you can understand why, talent is going to choose one company over the other, at least right now. But, maybe in years to come, things will change, things will get different. You don't know. I just hope that AEW can maintain this because, we've needed this for so long, and to have another competitor, a real competitor, that's pulling half or better, of your rating is really awesome. And I should mention Dynamite too. Dynamite and All Out had some pretty promising numbers. Dynamite drew 1.32 million this week, so they maintained over 1 million. I was really saying, like, they better get a million viewers after All Out, after that pay-per-view that was regarded as one of the best of, the modern era, and definitely the best of this year, with a lot of surprises. If you can't pull a big number on your follow-up show, that's going to be a little bit alarming. But it wasn't. They pulled in a good number, and All Out did 200,000 plus pay-per-view buys. Now, the one thing about this is, like, when I saw the ratings the other day, and of course, all you have to do is tweet out a number, and then fans just start jumping up their own asses, getting so upset and angry, and, it's not that, downplaying it if you're anti-AEW, upplaying it if you're a huge AEW fangirl, and they're at each other's throats. I look at this as a very promising number. Now, everybody wants to compare it to WWE. Fine, let's compare it to WWE. I see people, they only got half of their rating. Yeah. WWE's got a 50-plus year head start. AEW's been producing TV for 23 months since Dynamite started. 23 months. And they're drawing half or more of WWE's rating. Dynamite got a 1.32 million. Just a few weeks back, we got 1.4 on Raw. Now, Raw and SmackDown have since bounced back. They're up hovering in or around or above the 2 million viewer mark, which is really good, but compared to what their ratings used to be, is shit. So ratings in wrestling is generally just down overall. But when you got another company out there drawing half or better, and you've been around 51 years longer than them, and they're getting half your rating, that is a win. Those are positive numbers. What if a brand new cola started up, and within 2 years, they're selling half the amount that Coke is? Wouldn't people say, damn, or Pepsi for that matter? Coke or Pepsi been around since fucking Christ was born. And if you got a brand new cola, Greg Morgan's Cola, I start that today, and in 23 months from now, I'm bringing in half the amount of sales of Coca-Cola. I would be an American success story. Forbes would fucking have me on and saying, how'd you do it, man? Well, Coke and Pepsi are watered down. They're uncreative. They don't know how to push any fructose. So I decided to make my own concoction and give true cola fans what they're looking for. And in 23 months, I have chipped away, and I am now getting half of their sales. I'm definitely competition to them. And they should take notice of me, because I came out of nowhere. And all of a sudden, all the great Coke or the cola recipe makers are jumping ship from Pepsi and Coke over to my cola, so they can make it even better now. And give it more credibility. These are good numbers. So the fact that people can actually downplay this shit, it tells me that they're young, number one, and number two, they just don't know what they're talking about. They're too young. They don't know wrestling history. They don't know what ratings used to be. I saw somebody laugh at All Out's ratings because it did a fraction of WWE's pay-per-view buys in the Attitude Era. No shit. It did a fraction of the buys in the Attitude Era. So do WWE's pay-per-views. They also do just a fraction of the buys in the Attitude Era. That's an unfair comparison. What you can only do is compare where wrestling is now. And right now, when you compare WWE's numbers to AEW's numbers, it's like this. It's not like this. It's just like this. AEW's, they're not going to it's not going to ever be this or whatever, but AEW is doing very respectable. And when you can be around, like I said, for 2 years and pull in these kind of numbers, to spin this any other way than negative, or than positive, to spin this any other way than positive news is just to be willfully miserable, is to constantly be a miserable bag of shit your whole fucking life. If you're this mad, I saw people today angry. You have people, there are wrestling fans on there on both sides. I'm not just picking on the anti-AEW people. The anti-WWE people are just as bad. You have people that hope Dynamite gets a bad rating so they can talk shit on Twitter. You have people that hope Raw sucks. I don't want Raw to suck. I don't want Raw. Do you think it's fun shitting on Raw every Monday in the review? No, I want to talk about a good show. But I'm not everybody. There's a lot of people out there that hope the show sucks. Why? So they can talk shit on Twitter. They hope the show gets a bad rating so they can talk shit on Twitter. What the fuck is the matter with you people? You should want both shows to be awesome all the time. Last night on Smackdown was awesome. Obviously, you can't have Brock there having those confrontations every week. You can't bring the Demon back after a 2-year absence every week. But they showed last night that they can put together a good show. So why don't they? Probably because they're fucking exhausted, and you got Vince and Bruce handling everything. Bruce is doing a goddamn podcast. He's probably waking up with one bloodshot eye and fucking one sock on and be like, okay, I got to book SmackDown. Fuck it. Let's just make a bunch of bullshit matches. You know, like they're not putting anything into this because I just think it's just too messed up, you know, behind the scenes. So I think that to root for their failures, either company's failures, is absolutely ridiculous. And I think people really have to stop worrying about what other people are saying. Here's one tweet. Here's one phrase you'll never see in any of my tweets. Other podcasters. I see that shit all the time. What is the obsession with what other podcasters say? I don't give a fuck what other podcasters say. Because number one, I don't listen to their shows. Not that I don't want to, I just don't have time. I got my own show to do. And number two, like, I don't care. You know, so like I say, oh, you other podcasters, or these other guys aren't going to say this, but I will. I'm not that insecure. That to me just reeks of insecurity. You know, other podcasters, get the fuck over yourselves. Like what you like and shut the fuck up. You know, and if I watch a shitty Raw and give Raw shit, I'm usually giving Raw shit out of just frustration. That, man, this show, I watched it from the very first one. I've been watching wrestling on Monday nights 10 years before Raw even started. You know, and I want this shit to be good. I love Monday Night Wrestling. It's consumed 80% of my life, Monday Night Wrestling. And I always want that to be good, and I always want them to produce good TV, and I always want to be able to come up here on YouTube and talk about exciting shit. I wish I had this channel back in 1997 and 1998 when we can come up here and talk about the Hart Foundation versus USA feud and Austin's rise and Austin versus McMahon and Taker and Kane and DX and all that shit. My God, it would have been a blast. I want that again. I would never root for WWE's failure, and I would never root for AEW's failure. If you are one of those people that do that, you are a fucking moron. And you're not a wrestling fan. You're an idiot. So there's my my harsh words and insults for the day there. So anyway, good numbers, positive numbers for Dynamite and All Out, and hopefully things will get better. I mean, momentum, it's going to be volatile. You know, AEW is going to have a Dynamite where they drop under 1 million. Could be next week, then the week after. And when that happens, fans are going to fucking go all crazy. Oh, see, and they're going to start jizzing all over their goddamn faces to see, oh, AEW's dead. I told you, they're losing steam and all that. They're going to jump all over that. And they'll look like morons when they do it. It's going to fluctuate. It's going to go up and down. They'll have a good rating, a decent rating, a bad rating, followed by a good rating. That's just what happens. It happens on Raw. You know, just a few weeks ago, they did a 1.4. They were over 2 million last week or whatever. So shit goes up and down. It's what happens. Don't use 1 week just to fuel your entire argument against why your fucking company's better than the other. Fans just really embarrass themselves on ratings day. And I think that's going to continue, you know, for the foreseeable future. Speaking of AEW and WWE and all the problems, another thing that sparked a lot of debate and criticism and discussion this week on the social medias was what Mick Foley had to say. Now, Mick Foley released a very short video, I think on Thursday or Tuesday, maybe Wednesday. I don't know. Sometime this week. I think it was Wednesday. I think it was prior to Dynamite, actually. So I can kind of read what he said here because the transcript is very short. It's only a minute-long video. And he was very nice and soft-spoken like only Mick Foley is, and I'll read to you what he said. So I quote, "Hello, this is the hardcore legend Mick Foley. I'd like to title this video, WWE, We've Got a Problem, because I think you do. And that problem is that WWE is no longer the place for talent to aspire to go to. Part of it is because AEW is doing a great job of attracting great talent, proven talent, building other talent, creating storylines, but part of it is a problem of your own making. I think younger talent sees the way that developmental characters are cut or left by the wayside, or in the case of Karrion Kross, greatly watered down and even made a joke of when they debuted on the main roster. If it's not broke, don't fix it. That's the exact phrase we used regarding Karrion Kross when he came out in that fucking He-Man outfit. He says, if it's not broke, don't fix it. If I was an aspiring talent now, big league talent with a major decision to make, I'm not sure that I would trust WWE Creative to do the right thing with my career. You guys did wonders with me back in the day, but that was a different time, different place. If it was today, I'm not sure if I would trust the powers that be with my career in their hands. And until that changes, WWE, you've got a problem. Now, to me, this is about as simple as you can put it. This is the nicest guy in the world offering some extremely respectful, constructive criticism to WWE. And you have people questioning his motives. Oh, I don't know. If Mick Foley's under contract to them, then he fucking says this. And if he's not, it's just all about the money. I'm like, I don't think anybody paid Mick Foley to say this. And on top of that, Mick Foley has come out many times in the past and expressed just concern or mild frustration in the product. Why? Not because Mick Foley hates WWE, because he wants WWE to be better. You know, this is a cry for WWE to do better, because we know they can. They have the greatest talent roster in all of the world. You know, back in 1998, when they were really exploding with Austin McMahon and they overtook WCW in the ratings, even in 98, WCW had a far superior talent roster, but WWE was getting it done with the storylines. You fast forward 22 years later now, WWE's got the greatest talent in the world, but the worst creative they've ever had in the company's history. You know, and it's showing, you know, and as Mick Foley is trying to point out here, you know, you had no issues with Karrion Kross. There was no reason at all to change a single fucking thing about him. And you changed a bunch of things about him. And it's what they think gets over. It's what they think fans want that's so grossly and disgustingly out of touch. And it's almost just laughable at times. And so Mick Foley's message here, I think he was just trying to say, hey, WWE, you know, you can't just go around doing whatever you want to do anymore, because you now have a place. You have a competitor now where the decision isn't as easy as it used to be for talent. Before, just throw a contract extension in front of them. There's no other indie talent, Ring of Honor, Impact. Nobody's going to be able to offer what WWE is. So you just sign your extension and you keep going. That is different now, as we've seen. WWE has offered contracts to people and they say, I'm going to go take the one over there. Not because of the money, because that's just better over there. You know, like you guys, they're not going to drive me crazy over there. So a lot of people want to get in on that. I saw Cedric Alexander tweet out that he was jealous of Big Swole. There's a lot of talent, I think, in WWE right now. There's like, man, I would do anything to get over there. And a lot of that is because of just what the philosophy is now. So if anything, you know, much like back in the day with WCW, although WCW back then was a much bigger threat because it was Hogan, Savage, then Hall, then Nash, and then it was like, oh my God, the momentum swung so hard in their favor that they were actually beating them in the ratings. AEW isn't doing that, but what AEW is doing is beating them right now, at least in terms of where you want to go work. So far, you know, when it's come down to somebody getting an offer from both companies, they've chose AEW every time. So we'll see if that happens, you know, with another talent when their contract is up and they have an opportunity to go to AEW and they choose WWE. So far, the only people to really do that are the Brocks and the Goldbergs, you know, because, you know, why would you leave? If you're Brock or Goldberg, those are the exceptions. If you're Brock, Goldberg, or Roman Reigns, there is no reason for you to go to AEW because you are treated very well. Your storylines are usually pretty compelling. And, you know, you're on top all the time. So there's no greener grass, you know, for those guys, you know, but for everybody else, it's going to be a completely different situation now when they're presented with an opportunity or an option, you know, and where they can go. And now AEW can have, you know, they can even do a better job now of picking and choosing their talent. They're not just going to sign everybody. They're going to sign the best talent in the world that's out there. And Kevin Owens is one of those people. His contract's coming up, and, you know, a lot of the guys we've seen jump over there lately are as well. So Mick Foley was insanely right, you know, so for people to, like, question his motives, I'm like, this is the nicest guy in the world with, like, 40 years in the business. Sorry, but I'm going to take Foley's advice over some schmuck on fucking YouTube, you know, that's unhealthy, unemployed, and angry. I'm going to probably side with Mick Foley in most of those cases. So it wasn't a rant. He wasn't putting them down. He wasn't screaming into his camera like a fucking lunatic. He was just being nice Mick Foley, expressing concerns with what he feels some of the problems in WWE are. And there wasn't a syllable in what he said to me that was untrue. You know, if he was acting bitter, if he was talking about himself a lot, or if he was just kind of, you know, you could tell he was harboring a lot of resentment or anything like that. None of that ever comes out in Mick Foley's language or verbiage or anything like that. He's always just a super down-to-earth, you know, well-spoken guy who thinks out what he says. You know, he has well-thought-out shit. So I don't understand, you know, how people can take what he said as negative. If you can take something Mick Foley said as bitter or negative, then you're just really never going to ever objectively be able to look at anything, because that's just not what I took away from this. I thought he hit the nail right on the head, and he did it short and sweet and quickly and respectfully. To view that as anything else, you know, as anything negative is, like I said, just to be weird. Anyway, before we get into the next piece of news, which I just want to wrap up the news with some PWI 500 stuff, and I think that's it. Actually, let's finish that now. Then we'll do the Super Chats, then we'll jump into SmackDown and Dynamite. Wanted to talk about the PWI 500. I've never really cared about this. I've always looked at it whenever it came out every year, but I never care. It usually does spark a lot of debate. This year, Kenny Omega topped the list, and Roman Reigns came in too. So the top 10 was Kenny Omega, Roman, Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre, Kota Ibushi, Jon Moxley, Will Ospreay, Finn Balor, Shingo Takagi, and Rich Swann rounded out the top 10. So those are always debatable. A lot of those guys are champions in there right now. Kenny or Roman being on the top, I think that was... did Roman top it last year? I don't remember. I don't think he did. He might have. So I guess you could debate Kenny or Roman, but because both guys are super hot champions right now. So I don't know what the decision is to going into those things. Seth Rollins was number one, I think, a couple years in a row or something, wasn't he, right? So I don't really care, but in case you were wondering, Kenny Omega topped this year's list, and debate all you want, because I do not care. Also, a little bit of news regarding WWE's draft. Like I said earlier, too, about the Daniel Bryan or for WWE stuff, Meltzer was also reporting that WWE was actually willing to let Bryan Danielson work the G1 Climax for New Japan. They were actually willing to bend on that. So that's another point I wanted to bring up earlier on, is they were even willing to give him that, and he still chose to go somewhere else. So, you know, it's, you know, I think that's going to be a theme with a lot of guys. Anyway, we've got the new NXT debuting this coming Tuesday, so I'm going to be able to take a look at that. I won't be able to be home to watch the show, but I'll try to check it out. I'm curious what it looks like from the illustrations that we've seen. It actually looks like it's going to be a pretty cool looking setup there, kind of like a scaled down version of what WWE already does. It even sort of resembled a little bit to me of the old WCW Saturday night sets at the Universal, with the spinning ring, just the way the seats were set up. It kind of looked like that a little bit. So we'll see how it actually looks, but a brand new, big, colorful looking NXT debuts on Tuesday. So that's coming up. I'm very interested to see how that looks and how the new vibe is. Speaking of NXT, we should send well wishes out as well to Triple H. WWE released a statement just a couple of days ago that Triple H had a procedure done at Yale last week due to a cardiac event. So he's been recovering, apparently, and apparently hasn't been around NXT. I guess he had this, I suppose it was surgery. I think it was some sort of a heart surgery for Triple H, and that's incredibly scary. According to the release made by WWE, he is expected to make a full recovery, and everything's probably going to be fine with him. But, you know, you do notice that a little bit in wrestlers with big physiques. A lot of times they do tend to have heart issues around this age. So... very scary. I think I'm a Triple H fan. I liked him in the ring. I even sort of defended his reign of terror. I understood. It's like John Cena. It's like I understood the complaints or whatever, but to make him the Taliban seemed a little bit extreme. And that's the way it was with Triple H. The hate towards him, just because he was winning all the time, just like Charlotte. They just hate it when people win. They fucking hate it and make up excuses. It's just because of her dad and she can't work and all this. They have to fuel their hate with as much bullshit logic as they can. Otherwise, they just come off like a hateful asshole. So I think with Triple H, it was the same thing. I'm like, yeah, it feels like he's married to the boss's daughter. And so naturally when he wins, fans are going to think it's because he's got all the stroke. Part of that is true, but also part of it is because he's actually a really good champion. And I've always liked Triple H in the ring, thought he was a good character. He was never the Rock or Austin, but he was very good for his time, basically. And I always appreciated Triple H's ability to go heel, babyface, reinvent himself from Blue Blood to DX to Cerebral Assassin, babyface and heel, back and forth between in that character a lot, and all that stuff. I always just thought he was great. And then into his executive role and heading up NXT and what he was able to do there. And when you hear stories about Triple H being Vince McMahon's successor, I was always okay with that. I'm like, you know what? We could do a lot worse. And if Triple H is going to be the guy, I'm fine with that. Now, who knows now? I think a lot of things have changed in WWE over the past several years. That might not even be the case anymore. But whatever it is, we want Triple H to stay healthy. And being in charge of anything in WWE is a very, very stressful job. And I'm sure it takes a toll on the heart and the nerves and all that stuff. So best wishes out to Triple H and his future. Hopefully he's able to get right back to business and keep running things down there in NXT. Speaking of WWE being all over the place and not knowing which way is up, they've changed the scheduled or the advertised Extreme Rules WWE title match that was made on Monday between Lashley and Randy Orton. They have now moved that to this Monday on Raw. This coming Monday, we got Lashley and Orton for the title. No explanation has been given as to why they moved this, which is another reason why this fucking company annoys me so bad. They've now changed a pay-per-view match right after advertising it. This happened a couple of weeks ago where they advertised 2 or 3 matches the week before the show that I went to in San Diego. And they said, okay, next week we're going to get this, this, and this. And then none of that shit ever happened. Here they're doing it again. They make a match on Monday and then they decide, throughout the week, wait, let's change that. Fans won't care. So I'm assuming that maybe something's going to happen on Monday that's going to set up a rematch at Extreme Rules. But they've changed that, and we'll look forward to that on Raw. Before we wrap up the podcast here, I got a couple of super chats I want to answer, and then we will get into the SmackDown results from last night. Great show in Madison Square Garden, and we'll run through a little bit of Rampage, and then I got to get out of here. So thank you all for being here today. By the way, smash that thumbs up button for me if you don't mind. I would appreciate it. Let me scroll way back up here and knock out all these chats that I can. Mike Maxon, I've got $5 in from you. Thank you so much, dude. Owens should be a heel if he stays or goes. I'm cool with whatever Owens is. Owens is a great heel, but he is not, to me anyway, he's not one of those characters that should be something. Maybe they should be during certain times. Oh, he'd be great as a heel right now to go against so-and-so or whatever. But Owens is somebody that I think is good at both. I might lean with you in saying he's a slightly better heel than a babyface, just like Edge is a slightly better heel than a babyface, but they can both do it, and I don't think he should. I think he's too good and too versatile, and he has a lot more range than just being one thing and one thing only. He can definitely be a babyface. If he stays, he should maybe just stay a babyface right now, but if he goes, I think heel would be fun. Over there in AEW. So I'm cool with whatever Owens does. I think he's very good and very talented. Rude Killer 17. Thanks for the $5, dude. What's up, Greg? If Owens does go to AEW, do you think Sami Zayn will eventually follow? Also, thoughts on how Nakamura would do if he jumped as well. Well, Sami Zayn we talked about a little bit ago. I think when Zayn's contract is up, especially if Owens goes, he is 100% going. There's no doubt in my mind that Sami Zayn will make that jump as well. Nakamura, I think, would do very well over there, too. AEW would love to have him. Plus, you could have that New Japan tie-in. Maybe he could even go back over there and work a match, which would be awesome. But I believe Nakamura is one of those guys that actually is happy with his spot. Apparently, he did re-sign recently. He likes being here in the U.S. He loves to surf. I think he's a guy that's okay with his position, basically, because he's another guy like Owens that I've had some frustrations with. I wish they would do more with, but for the most part, he is on TV all the time. He's always in matches. A lot of times he's carrying the Intercontinental title or something, and he's doing something of significance on the show. Maybe not as much as we wanted him to, but enough to where he's featured every week, he's paid well, and he's happy. You are going to have some talent like that might just not care. They might say, yeah, I could maybe do more creatively fun shit over in AEW, but I just kind of like where I'm at. I like my life, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So if Nakamura prefers it, if WWE is the better place for Nakamura in his life, Who are we to judge Nakamura? So, but if he did jump, I think he'd do very well, obviously, in AEW. We'd get some good shit over there. I can think of 6 matches right off the top of my head that I'd love to see him in. So I'd be into that. Adam Rogers versus Lashley. We should have gotten that. Zane G, thank you for the $10, man. Thanks for being here as well. Going back to Owens, as long as Jericho stays with AEW, with Owens possibly heading there, is it possible that the Festival of Friendship can make a comeback? Yes, I do think that Owens and Jericho could do something together in AEW if Owens jumps. I mean, you could have those guys main event a pay-per-view or something. You could rekindle that. If Jericho ever wants to have a send-off or anything, a real send-off, maybe it could be against Owens. I don't know if WWE trademarked Festival of Friendship, but somebody might want to look into that, and you can do part 2 on AEW. But yeah, I think Owens and Jericho, maybe not necessarily doing another Festival of Friendship, but rekindling either their rivalry or their friendship. Because I would love, they were great together. They were great. Their breakup was great. The WrestleMania match was even good, even though for whatever Vince didn't like it. They were fun as a team. So they'd be interesting together, especially if Owens does start off as a face or something and he's got some elite problems, and maybe Jericho, maybe Owens says something, "You think I don't have friends here?" And he kind of points behind him, and Jericho kind of comes out of the darkness to join him side by side. What about this guy? A little bit of history here, I think. We've worked on the grandest stage, and we're coming for you, motherfuckers. I don't know. They could do something like that. So, yeah, I think the opportunities and the possibilities, I should say, for Owens are endless. And that's why I think a lot of guys, too, are going to make the decision to go to AEW, because many of them, with the rinse and repeat nonsense and the meaningless matches that they're put into in WWE, there's like fresh stuff over there. I already know what I'm going to do here. If I stay here, I know what I'm doing. I'm going to be in a fucking promo and somebody's interrupt me, and then we're going to have a match, and then somebody's interrupt, and then we're going to go commercial, and it's going to be a tag match. Same shit. Over there, it's like, shit, I could work with him. I could be heel, babyface, then I could turn heel, then I could turn babyface again, then turn heel again. There's so many things and possibilities over there. That's why I think that's attractive to a lot of guys with upcoming contracts. You know what I mean? Could it be they just want to move Raw off that network? What, USA? No, they don't want to do that. Becky's baby will be NXT champion on Tuesday. I love that people, I'm not making fun of you, Sam, at all. But I've heard very little about Seth Rollins. Like, every time I hear about Becky and her pregnancy, is always Becky's baby. Becky's not even married, according to the fans. Like, I don't hear Seth Rollins really brought up. Like, it's his kid too. But it is funny that I think people just don't like to think of Becky and Seth together. So, but yeah, Becky's baby, who knows, man? They probably already got that kid pumping iron. Seth's probably got the kid in CrossFit already. You might be right, Sam. If that happens, let me know, and I will make sure I pull up my phone while I'm at work on Tuesday and try to watch that go down. Wouldn't be surprised. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And Deshaun, another thing you got to remember about the ratings and stuff is that Monday Night Football starts back up on Monday. So that is going to be an asterisk. I'm somebody that's going to jump to WWE's defense. If they draw a bad number and then AEW draws a good one, it does depend on what the Monday night matchup is. If it's fucking Super Bowl rematch or something, or some big epic match between 2 first-place teams, that is going to put a dent in WWE's rating, where AEW doesn't really have to worry about that. They're going to have to worry about an NBA time and stuff like that. But in terms of Raw going up head-to-head with Monday Night Football, that's going to decrease their ratings. And if AEW can continue their sideways momentum, it's going to be hard to do better than what they did last week. Obviously, this week's ratings is going to take a dip. But as long as they can kind of stay above that million, I think that's really all they're looking to do. Or obviously, they're looking to do more. But I think for right now, that is those are positive signs. When you're drawing 40 to 50% of the big competitors' ratings, I'm looking at that as half full, not half empty. So, but you got to think about Monday, and that's gonna play into all the ratings debating nonsense on social media. That's gonna be so fun, and I'm sure everybody will conduct themselves with the utmost professionalism and kindness, like always on Twitter. Anyway, let's talk about SmackDown last night. Their rating came in 2.2 million for SmackDown last night, and this show felt awesome. I wasn't home to watch it. I was scrolling through Twitter a little bit. Everybody was saying the same thing. It was like, this show has a feel. This show feels really good. Like, it's got a pay-per-view vibe to it. And on top of that, it was an MSG crowd, and they were jacked. They had very similar energy to the United Center Rampage. For real, they did. I didn't think anything could match that level of excitement in the air in the United Center, and nothing, and MSG didn't, but they came close. It had that same type of vibe. They were just ready, man. They were ready for something. It's been a long time since WWE's been back in MSG. And to be there again, the fans were ready. They did apparently bring out, I mentioned the 9/11 show, or the Never Forget show on Peacock right now that I checked out last night, where they talked about the Smackdown after 9/11. Apparently they did have Lillian on Smackdown last night. It didn't make air, but she did sing the national anthem for the crowd. And that is so awesome, because I'm not a patriotic guy. I think anthems and flags are a little silly. I know a lot of people don't like to hear that, but it's just the way I feel. But I will say, when Lillian sang the anthem after 9/11, that was my favorite. Although that one and the one Whitney Houston sang at the Super Bowl one year, like 91 or 92. Whitney Houston and Lillian Garcia, I think, are my two favorite renditions of the national anthem ever. And especially Lillian Garcia's, because of the circumstances. She was like, when she was getting to that ending line, the tears were already welling up. You know, when she was finally done with the song, just breaking down like that. That was a great, just touching, awesome moment. So for them to bring her back basically on the 20-year anniversary of that in New York, I thought was really special that they did that last night. So that's awesome. Also, SmackDown set some more records. According to a tweet from Ariel Helwani, I quote, "Last night's WWE SmackDown at MSG produced the highest grossing, I'm assuming, SmackDown gate of all time, per sources, not just in New York, of any city ever for any SmackDown." And SmackDown, of course, began in 99? It's been around for 22 years, something like that. So that's huge. So their gate, there's no dollar figure amount here or whatever, but I guess they must have been sold out last night, and highest gate for any SmackDown all time ever in any city. That's pretty incredible. So good numbers. Not only they did a good rating, they drew a great gate. They delivered a fantastic show, and the crowd was hot. The only negative was that I don't know what they did or where the time issues happened, but they had to bump a couple of segments due to time. So that was a bummer, but overall, last night's show had a great feel. It was extremely, because sometimes, when I work Friday nights and I have to come home and I have to prep today's podcast, sometimes I don't want to do it. Sometimes I don't want to watch SmackDown. Last night was really easy to watch SmackDown. It was a good show. The crowd was so hot. The crowd was just jacked, ready, having a good time, and I loved to see that shit. So we knew we were going to get Brock Lesnar. They teased the Demon last week, and we knew we were going to get Bianca and Becky's contract signing. So it was shaping up to be a pretty good show. So the show opened up with Roman Reigns. I'm not going to go through all the results here, just the main stuff on SmackDown. Roman Reigns opens up the show. Crowd is just all over him. They are very vocal, and he is demanding that the MSG crowd acknowledge him. We were all waiting for Brock. Out comes Brock Lesnar. I think I asked this question to you guys on Monday, and I never read the answer. Has Brock been in Madison Square Garden since WrestleMania 20? Certainly he has, right? He worked a live event there. Oh, wait, he did. I know he worked like a live event or a WWE Network special in the Garden. There was like just for the network or something. There might have been some other instances there, but I can't recall too many times that Brock has been back in the Garden since they all booed him out of the building at WrestleMania 20. So Roman's out there, demands that the MSG crowd acknowledge him. They're not having it. Brock's music hits. He comes out just a massive pop. Very different than the pop he got back in 2004 at WrestleMania 20. This was the exact opposite of that. Crowd goes nuts for him. He gets in the ring, and this whole thing is just very interesting with Paul Heyman kind of being stuck in the middle here. And Brock is in the ring, and Paul Heyman gets on the mic first, and he goes, "Brock, I have to ask you a question. He asked Brock why he's coming after the Universal title. Why are you coming after this title when you could go after another title? You and I could dominate." So basically, Paul kind of wants to represent both based on what he's saying here. And Brock then grabs the mic. He goes, "Well, I have a question for you, Paul. Why didn't you tell Roman that I was going to be at SummerSlam?" Claiming that Heyman knew that Brock was going to be at SummerSlam, and Heyman's kind of eyes get big, and he looks at Roman. He goes, I knew nothing. I didn't know anything. I swear to God, I didn't know anything. So Roman kind of looks pissed. He winds up leaving Heyman alone in the ring with Brock, and then Heyman starts to do his old Brock shtick. I'm the advocate for the reigning, defending, and doing all that shit. Brock ends up kind of like interrupting him and lifting him up for the F5 to basically F5 Paul Heyman, at which time Roman then jumps in the ring and hits Brock with a Superman punch, and he goes down and basically like Samoan drops Paul Heyman on the ground. So props to Heyman for taking that bump in the ring there. He's not in bump shape, you know? So it's for him to see him take that was pretty interesting. The Usos then save Roman for an F5. He goes for a second Superman punch on Brock, and Brock catches Roman in F5 position. Usos jump in the ring to save Roman. Roman escapes, and Brock just annihilates both Usos as Roman retreats, and the crowd was just super hot for that whole segment. Brock looked good. Good to see him back. They're setting up the big showdown here with Roman Reigns. Obviously, that's going to have to be in Saudi Arabia. No other real place on the immediate horizon for that to be, unless you really pushed it for WrestleMania next year. But how are you going to do that when these guys are already having, segments on TV? So I think it might be cool if you did something in Saudi Arabia and Roman fucked over Brock, and then you do a rematch or something at WrestleMania possibly. But it looks like that's going to be the match for Saudi Arabia, which means I'm going to have no choice but to watch that fucking show, because I'm really interested in seeing this Brock versus this Roman. Completely different dynamic. And if the storyline, like Paul Heyman claims, is going to take a lot of twists and turns along the way, do you think Heyman will eventually dump Roman in favor of Brock? Or if Heyman does what Bobby Heenan did when Harley Race returned and they had already put the crown on Haku, and you had a match for the crown, Harley and Haku, and Heenan was just in a neutral corner and he was going with the winner. Maybe that's what Heyman does here. I don't know. But seeing Brock and Roman mix it up for the first time in a while was super exciting, because I've been really waiting to see this, because this is a different dynamic. I've had fans resist the idea of a Brock and Roman match because they felt like we've already seen it. No, we haven't. We have not. This is so different. And I've been saying all along, I'm like, what's going to happen when Roman Reigns pulls this acknowledge me shit with somebody like Brock Lesnar? Brock Lesnar is going to acknowledge his foot right up Roman's ass. So it's going to be interesting when Roman tries to do that stuff with Brock or with Rock. And if he's able to, I think eventually at some point Roman needs to put down Brock Lesnar. He needs to smash him, like he says. Brock owes Roman that, from when all the, years that Roman was helping making Brock and putting him over and shit. So I think that that's got to happen. I just wish the setting wasn't going to be Saudi Arabia, and right now it's looking like that's going to be the deal. We had a 10-man tag on the show that was really interesting because it involved, I didn't even write down the players in this. All I know is that Sami Zayn and Big E were in it. Who do we have? Probably Chad Gable and I don't even know who's in this 10-man tag. Forgot. Didn't even write down the participants. But anyway, the story of this 10-man tag was Sami Zayn. He comes out for the heels. He's dressed up in New York's Knicks shit. He's got like a Knicks jersey and like Knicks pajama pants on or something. And he's talking about what a big fan he is or whatnot. And then he brings out Trae Young from the Atlanta Hawks, who the crowd, I have never heard anybody get a heel reaction. Not even Logan Paul got this type of hate when he's been on TV recently. Holy shit. What a brilliant idea to bring this guy out. He was very disliked during the Miami and New York series during the playoffs, and that crowd fucking hated him in a way, like I could tell they enjoyed it, like, oh, they booed him so hard, but it wasn't a type of situation where I thought fans were really going to jump the guardrail and attack him. I think they even appreciated that WWE came in and flaunted this guy in their face. Just really gives them a reason to be vocal. It was fucking nuts. He even gets tossed out, I think, by the referee during the match or whatnot. In the end, it sees Big E pin Sami Zayn for the victory for the baby faces. Maybe it was Boogs. It was Boogs and Nakamura and all those guys, right? That's who was involved in this thing. And after the match, Big E does cut a promo about his Money in the Bank briefcase. And for the first time in a while, he kind of did bring up Bobby Lashley. He mentioned Lashley and Reigns. So I'm glad that he teased Lashley, because I've been saying ever since he won the briefcase that Raw might be the better place for him. And like I said, to elaborate too, I forgot who was it that It might have been Andrew Zarian who had mentioned the WWE draft dates. I believe they begin on like October 1st, which is a SmackDown, and then follow up on Monday or vice versa. So it's like the first couple days in October apparently is going to be the WWE draft. Now, Big E doesn't necessarily have to be drafted, but he could. He still has that briefcase, which is like its own draft. If he wants to show up and take the title from Bobby Lashley, he could just show up there. So I feel like Big E going to Raw now is an even bigger possibility than it was before. I think somebody like Drew McIntyre would be excellent to jump over to SmackDown, and there's a lot of moves that you can probably make in the draft. I've never really been big on drafts. However, this one, it feels like there are a couple of moves I'd like to see made, and maybe we'll get that in October. So with Big E teasing a Lashley cash-in, that gave me hope, that maybe they will put the title on him, and him going to Raw and cashing it in, could be what Raw needs. Plus his New Day buddies are there. I would love to see them celebrate with Big E. That would be great. It would be leave poor Xavier Woods out, the only guy never to win a title in that group. But it's going to be a big moment when or if Big E is able to cash in that briefcase, and we are rooting for him hard. We also got the Becky and Bianca contract signing, which I really enjoyed. Becky came out there dressed ridiculous in this big, gigantic red fur fucking coat or something and these oversized sunglasses. And Bianca Belair, my God, the past 2 weeks on SmackDown, she has looked like just fall off my chair gorgeous. Her and Montez are going to make some beautiful fucking children. I'm going to tell you that. She looks like a star. She really does. And props to Becky. She's been working it. We all thought the heel turn was a mistake. I still kind of think it was, but she is working it, man. She is trying her best to get the fans to cheer Bianca. And I think in this segment, it worked to a large degree. A lot of what Becky was saying, she was being a complete asshole. They were both sitting there. Becky's sitting there like an arrogant piece of shit. And Bianca wants her to sign the contract, or Adam and Sonya are out there too. They want her to sign the contract. And he goes, what if I don't? What if I don't sign it? And then Bianca's like, girl, fucking sign the contract. Sign it, sign it, sign it. The fans even chant, sign it. Bianca was able to get them to chant, sign it, sign it, sign it. Finally, she does. She goes, okay, fine. I'm going to put you down again, and you're going to see why I'm the best, or whatever the fuck she says. She signs her name on the contract and then grabs the contract and throws it at Bianca's face, and she just catches it. Just catches it, just like this. Just folds it. And is like, and kind of backs down, and that was the end of it. So I really didn't hate this contract signing. I thought it was kind of good. So Becky and Bianca is official for Extreme Rules. That's going to be a lot of fun. We'll see where it goes. And, what I like about Becky is that it seems like the way her promos and everything are set up is that she really is trying to get Bianca over as the babyface here. So, and a lot of times it doesn't work that way. A lot of times you'll see talent burying the other guy. You'll see a heel talent, laughing in the face of a babyface or doing something just to kind of discredit them a little bit. Where, here Becky seems to be working really hard to make sure that the fans are firmly behind Bianca when they finally collide. And they got a couple of more weeks to get this done. But I think so far, Becky's doing better than I thought. I thought it was going to be really tough for fans to want to boo her at least right away when she came back. But they're giving her a chance to do what I think they intended for her to do prior to Nia spreading her nose all across her face a few years back. They were going in this direction with Becky. She attacked Charlotte at that SummerSlam show, and she was turning into Stone Cold, and then they kind of had no choice but to make her babyface after the face smash. So here, maybe Becky's getting a chance to do this again, now getting a chance to do it coming off of that dominant year-long title run. And somebody had even mentioned out, a possibility down the road of doing a Becky and Ronda Rousey rematch if Ronda decided to come back for one more match or something down the road, because she's pregnant, correct? Aren't they having a kid? So like whenever that comes and goes, has a kid, gets in shape, comes back in, a showdown between Becky and Ronda would make that situation, kind of come full circle as well, since both women had a year-long title run. And Becky kind of caught Ronda with a quick victory there at WrestleMania. Probably the best part of SmackDown, actually, that's not even the best. Everything was the best on this show. One of the highlights of SmackDown was the pay-per-view quality match between Seth Rollins and Edge. How lucky are we on Friday nights on both shows to get a pay-per-view quality match on both? Pac and Andrade was fucking awesome on Rampage, and Seth and Edge was great here. SummerSlam rematch, Edge Edge. I love Edge. He came out there rocking some Bret the Hitman Hart inspired gear, which immediately is going to put him in my fangirl club, and I'm going to be rooting hard for Edge, although the writing was pretty much on the wall here with the way Seth Rollins has been, his behavior, some of the things he's been saying as of late, and how he's kind of gone off the deep end a little bit as it relates to Edge, and how he reacted to his loss to Edge at SummerSlam. So you had a feeling Rollins, and I said this prior to the SummerSlam match, I said, these guys are working a program. It's going to be 2, possibly even 3 matches long, and Seth will get a victory. It just will not be at SummerSlam. Edge is going to get that one. So here, they have a pretty good match, and Seth Rollins actually is able to put down Edge after they just have this killer match. And they gave him a long time, too. They gave a lot of TV time to these guys, and they deserved it because this is a WrestleMania SummerSlam pay-per-view quality type of match that they're given on free TV on Fox. And they had an awesome performance. Both guys did. In the end, Edge, I think he takes like 3 super kicks to the face, and he's really struggling to get up, and he's been spending the entire 25-minute match trying to avoid the stomp, but he's just laying there in prone position in the middle of the ring, and Seth sees it, and he goes, nope, this is it. He just goes right up and stomps Edge like it was nothing, rolls him over, and even kind of carefully goes for the cover like he knows Edge is dead. He just covers him. Referee counts 3, and he kind of backs off like, oh, well, I guess I had to do that. Like, I stomped him or whatever. EMTs immediately run out. The only thing I didn't like about this is I actually think the guys with the stretcher were out there a little quick. It was almost like they were on cue, because they were. They were like right off set, right off stage there. The minute the match was over, they were going to wheel the stretcher out there, if that was a legitimate thing. And Seth had really taken some sort of a bad neck bump, and the referee did the thing, and they brought out some EMTs. It would have taken a few seconds longer. They would have been out there quick, but the bell had just rung, and the stretcher's right there. They should have delayed it like 15 seconds. That's all I'm asking. That's a nitpick, but it didn't feel real. It didn't feel like when Shawn collapsed on Raw, and the commentary didn't say anything, and Vince slowly walked in the ring, and they faded to black and all that stuff. It didn't have a real feeling to it, to where you knew Edge wasn't hurt. You knew he's probably being written off TV, which is fine. He'll be back. Hopefully he'll have another blow off with Rollins or something down the road. He'll come back around Survivor Series time, Royal Rumble time, maybe even Crown Jewel time. It is possible. So not sure what the future with Edge is going to be, but he's at least going to be off TV for now. Rollins got his victory back. Even backstage, kind of a little kooky promo that he cut. I really like Seth Rollins. This is the best I've ever enjoyed Seth Rollins as a character, because he now really feels like he has a character. Even the way he makes his entrance, and he's just, everything is just better. He's good in this kind of delusional role that he's been in that's getting increasingly better over time. I didn't like last year and the eyeball shit and all that stuff they did with Mysterio or whatever, but in terms of his demeanor, his attitude, his personality, his promos, he's all over the place, and I love him for it. And I think he's doing a great job. So Rollins is another guy. I don't know, maybe back over to Raw. Otherwise, Rollins might want to get in that Universal title picture, which he has mentioned a couple of times. So we'll see how he plays in to Brock, Roman, and like we'll talk about here in a minute, the Demon. Main event was the Usos taking on the Street Profits tag team title match here. Good match between these two teams, as you would expect. In the end, Roman Reigns jumps in and puts the guillotine on Montez Ford when he's about to have the match won for his team. So the Usos are about to cough up the tag belts. Roman makes the save, causes the disqualification. And after he's done, he gets on the mic, or after the Usos and him dispose of the Street Profits, Roman gets on the mic and tells Brock, hey, I'll smash you. I got no problem smashing you after I smash Finn Balor, which I guess is our Extreme Rules match. And then as soon as he says that, the red lights turn on, the red circular cloud opens up, and the Demon does in fact return. We get the music, we get the entrance. He comes down to the ring, stares down with Roman Reigns and the Usos, and now Roman is going to have a much bigger problem to contend with at Extreme Rules when he must face the Demon. So we'll see. I don't think that the Demon is going to be winning the title. I would like it if he did. I would love to see, much like Kevin Owens, I would love to see Balor get another, crack. And, Balor is another guy that, like Owens, like Bryan, like Cole, it's not that he was mistreated in any way. It's just when his contract is up, he's another guy that I'd be really interested to see what decision he makes. He feels like somebody that would make the jump as well. I could be wrong. Don't even know what kind of time is left on Demon's deal. Could be 3 years for all we know. But if it's any time in the near future, keep your eye on Balor, because he's another dude that I wouldn't be surprised, unless they do put the title on him. He's another guy that I wouldn't be surprised maybe makes that jump sometime in the future as well. But Roman and the Demon should be a really fun match. I'm hoping that the Demon is not just returning. He is undefeated on the main roster, has lost in NXT, if I remember correctly, right? I know Joe beat him in NXT. I don't think he's taken a loss on the main roster. So I'd hate to see him come in for one match just to get beat by Roman, but that's probably what's going to happen, because Roman's going to have that showdown with Brock Lesnar, probably at Crown Jewel. So I think the Demon is an interim opponent for Roman before he moves on to Brock. So I don't want to see the Demon just cast aside like that. I don't want to see the Demon beat, but we probably are going to see the Demon beat. But if we do, another feather in the cap of Roman Reigns, and then if he turns that or follows that up just a few weeks later with a win over Brock, Roman's going to have a pretty decent year, I would say. The only dark spot on SmackDown we should mention, due to time constraints, it was reported that 2 segments were cut from the show. One of them was a Kevin Owens and Baron Corbin segment, which I'm sure would have been really good. That segment was scrapped, but also a match was scrapped. An unadvertised tag team match between Toni Storm and Zelina Vega versus Liv Morgan and Toni Storm versus Zelina Vega and Carmella. That was the tag match. It was unadvertised. They had to scrap it due to time, and fans got really unnecessarily outraged about this, I think. The one sad point in this was Zelina Vega. Now, as we talked about earlier, Zelina Vega lost her father in the 9/11 attacks 20 years ago. Apparently, last night was probably going to be a special deal for her, and I can totally understand that. If I'm her, what that would probably feel like to be outside in a New York City audience 20 years after my father died in the biggest tragedy ever. I get it. She even had some new gear made. It's extremely sad. However, shit happens. Shit happens. Live TV, decisions have to be made. And I saw a lot of people very angry. Oh, they could have at least done this. They could have at least done that. Man, there ain't no time to worry about that shit on live TV. If you have to make a split-second decision to cut something, you can't be worrying about what somebody's feelings or shit like that. I'm sorry. What's that shit that the anti-snowflakes like to say all the time? Fuck your feelings. Fuck your feelings. The shit happens, and it's unfortunate, and it sucks. But none of it was malicious. None of it was done on purpose. They didn't purposely fuck over Zelina Vega. They don't hate women. The way that fans get themselves so worked up. I saw people like, oh man, I saw give SmackDown women a chance was trending. Why? Because they cut an unadvertised, meaningless tag match that, aside from the Zelina Vega 9/11 tie-in, literally meant nothing. If this was any other week, I don't give a fuck if I don't get to see Liv and Toni versus Zelina and Carmella. I'm honestly probably better off if I don't see that match. So I don't see what the big deal is to turn it into something like WWE's got an issue with women all of a sudden or whatever. That's absurd. That's fucking ridiculous. It is an unfortunate situation that I feel bad about. Can you argue to cut something else instead? No, because you needed everything else. First of all, you can't cut the 10-man tag because they already cut a 10-man tag in Madison Square Garden back at WrestleMania 10. All these fans in the arena probably remember that. They were very upset at WrestleMania 10 when they cut the 10-man tag. So you can't, it's so fresh in everybody's mind 27 years ago, it's just too soon to cut another one. So you needed to keep the 10-man tag, and unfortunately the women and Owens and Corbin got scrapped. It's the way shit goes sometimes. Sometimes you have to call audibles. Sometimes unexpected things happen that cause you to alter your show. None of it was on purpose. They didn't do anything. The WWE's not awful people who hates women. WWE's not pro 9/11 attacks because they didn't put Zelina Vega on TV. The ridiculous outrage I saw over this was so dumb. And a lot of that is probably just fueled by a lot of people just hating everything WWE does right now. And I think that's silly, because like I was talking to somebody on Twitter today, it's like when things are firing on all cylinders, fans tend to let shit slide. So like back in the Attitude Era, they had some dumb shit on TV. They had to cut some segments. They had some things that did not age well, tasteless things, inappropriate things, offensive things, terrible matches, ridiculous storylines. They had a lot of this going on, but everything else was so good. Whenever you would have a situation like that, you could kind of brush it off. Problem now is WWE is about as uninspiring as they've ever been from a creative standpoint. They have a few things they do right. The Roman shit is fantastic. They got some great characters, some great wrestlers there. Last night's Smackdown, like I said, was one of the best shows they've done in a long, long time. But even with those moments of greatness, overall, the product is largely criticized and panned by the audience right now, just because of how fucked up, discombobulated, and just a mess everything seems to be internally from a creative standpoint. And you don't have to look any further than this very fucking Monday night on Raw, when not 5 days ago, they advertised that it's going to be Lashley and Orton at Extreme Rules. And less than a week later, they've changed their mind and put the match now on Raw. They don't know what they're doing. So, when you hear these criticisms, they're all very, very, very valid. I just don't turn my WWE frustration into anger and hate, where I'm using it to jump on them for every little situation. I will defend their decision till the end of the earth to scrap that match last night. Not because anybody deserved it, not because it was the right or wrong thing to do, but because sometimes shit happens. You guys all have lives, right? You live those lives. You wake up every day, eat food, dress yourself, and go about your day. Don't you have days where sometimes shit happens and you have to do something? I wish I didn't have to do that, but you had to do it. Why? Because shit happens. So get over yourselves about the tag team match. Not that big a deal. Overall, SmackDown was awesome last night. A+ show. And if anything, it makes me even more frustrated when I see WWE capable of putting on a show that's so good. And the only reason really theoretically that you think that's stopping them from doing it every week is they just don't want to. Yes, you can't bring Brock back every week, and you can't re-debut the Demon every week, but you can certainly put together big-time, compelling matchups between stars and produce your TV in a coherent, cohesive way with angles and storylines that are followed through, and just don't focus so much on your stupid moments and actually tell some fucking stories. Fans might respond a little bit better, but we're not getting that in WWE right now at all. And they're messing a lot of other stuff up too with their talent and whatnot. So WWE needs help, and they do deserve every bit of criticism creatively and from a product standpoint that they get. I just don't like to see fans use that criticism or use those issues towards WWE to make every little thing that comes up ammunition as to why WWE is the worst ever. I don't like that mentality. You see it the same way on AEW. One botch in an AEW match, just see they're the worst, or whatever. So it's just such an ugly community, ugly. Speaking of AEW, let's jump into Rampage real quick. Last night's show was really short, sweet. I think the week before was better, but this week was good. Like I said, I did express, I don't know how to say dislike or anything like that. I just feel like based on the quality of the match we got between Andrade and Pac, that should have been the main event. It opened up the show. It was awesome. Like I said, we had in 1 hour's time, we had Seth and Edge and Andrade and Pac. That's awesome. So they have a fucking banger of a match here. Andrade and his crew are on the outside, or his crew's on the outside. I know it's Chavo. What's the other dude's name? Did I hear Jose? I forgot his name, what his name even is. So during the match, he jumps up with like a taser gun. So he's got like a taser, and he's like trying to tase the air from the ring apron. Referee sees this, starts getting very concerned with the taser. The Lucha Brothers then come out, and they yank down Taser Boy from the top, and while the referee is distracted dealing with all that, that allows Chavo to come in the ring from behind and whack Pac on the back of the head with like an iPad or a tablet or something, knocks him out. Andrade is able to cover Pac for the win and get the victory in a really good match. Now, after the match, as Andrade and company are leaving, he kind of looks a little bit like, he asked Chavo, did you hit him with the thing? And Chavo's like, yeah. And he gave Chavo a hug, and then he nailed Chavo. He punched Chavo and attacked him. And the commentary is kind of playing it off like Andrade wanted to win the match on his own. Chavo did not, show him the respect of his wishes, or whatever. And chose to, I guess, disobey him. I didn't see the interview where Andrade asked for this, so I'm trying to figure out how to word it. But basically, Andrade wanted to win the match or fight the match on his own. Chavo helped him, and it looked like while Andrade appreciated it, he was still pissed and wanted to let him know he was pissed. Now, immediately, this sparked talk online that Andrade might have kicked Chavo to the curb here and might be bringing in a new manager. And I think we all know who that manager could possibly be. Daddy-in-law, future daddy-in-law, Ric Flair, which would be really interesting. I'd like to see Flair interact with like Tully, Arn, and Sting if he goes over there. But having Andrade or being Andrade's manager could certainly help Andrade. But when I watched the segment back, to me, it almost looked like that wasn't the case. I don't know if Andrade was kicking Chavo to the curb. I think Andrade was just letting Chavo know, don't disobey me again, because this is what happens. Respect my wishes, respect my demands, and when I tell you not to do something, don't do it, or I'm going to punch you in the fucking face. And that's what he did. So it almost felt like it was just a punch to tell him he's angry, but everything's fine. I could be wrong. I don't know. They might follow through with this on Wednesday a little bit. If he does actually break up with Chavo permanently and bring in Ric Flair, who knows? But one thing that I did enjoy coming out of all of this is it does look like, especially after their big win at All Out, that the Lucha Brothers are going to stay in the Death Triangle with Pac. I kind of thought the Luchas would turn on Pac and join Andrade's team or whatever, but now, the way they had that big match, at All Out, and they won the titles and everything, keeping them baby faces, I think is the way to go, and I like Death Triangle, so I'm glad that they are all still together, and we'll see what winds up going down with Andrade and Chavo down the road. After that, we got a Sting and Darby Allin promo. Darby, they're going to talk about Tully Blanchard, who talked some shit last week. They're going to talk about Tully and Shawn Spears. Darby calls Shawn Spears a generic piece of shit, so it's just more examples of how two wrestling companies only know one swear word. That's so weird. And after that, Tully then gets on the mic, Sting gets on the mic and tells Tully that he was riding Arn Anderson and Slick Rick's coattails for years, winds up challenging Tully Blanchard to a fight. Sting and Tully Blanchard challenging each other to a match in 2021 wasn't on my bingo card. Tully comes out, says something, starts talking smack to Sting. While this is happening, Shawn Spears slithers in the ring and attacks Darby Allin behind Sting's back, and Tully says, see, you'll never be able to outsmart me. Now you're by yourself. Watch yourself. So anyway, that was a fun little segment there. We'll see where it leads on Wednesday. And in the main event, the man that was taken off TV for a questionable line in a rap promo is in the main event here on Rampage against Brian Pillman Jr. taking on Max Caster. Now, of course, on Wednesday, we watched it together. Wednesday night watch-alongs every Wednesday. Don't forget, we watched Dynamite. We watched the promo with MJF and the Pillman family. The Pillman family was in the front row, who a lot of them we saw on Dark Side of the Ring, cutting a harsh-ass promo on them, which I loved because I didn't see too many people complaining, but I did see a couple people that felt that MJF crossed over the line. If you've even watched a minute of Brian Pillman's career, you would know that this is nothing. Brian Pillman, if he was alive, I don't want to speak for the dead, but I promise you right goddamn now, if Brian Pillman was alive, he would be like, fuck yeah, I want you to do that. So, I don't think any lines were crossed in this at all because it was the family of Pillman. And Pillman was gnarly. And there was nothing off the table for him. This is a guy that pulled out a fucking gun on Monday Night Raw. So there's nothing that MJF is going to be able to say that's going to be that bad. So we got all that. Now it's Pillman Jr. here in the main event against Max Caster, just to give the Cincinnati crowd some hometown boy vibes, which they got. When you compare it, the match wasn't bad at all. But when you compare it to what we saw earlier between Andrade and Pac, not even close. There's apples and oranges here completely. But in the end, Pillman's still kind of an old school worker. He's not as athletic as some other guys, but he's still a very good athlete. And he won with a springboard clothesline that his dad used to use all the time, especially early in Brian Pillman's career. He actually used that as a finisher a couple of times. So Pillman Jr. was able to hit Max Caster with the springboard clothesline from the top rope and pinned him for the win. After the match, Owens jumps right in the ring, starts attacking Pillman Jr. That's when Moxley, Cincinnati boy, hometown guy, comes out, makes the save, hits a paradigm shift on a couple of them. They retreat, and Moxley and Pillman Jr. celebrate to close out the show in front of the Cincinnati crowd. That was a nice moment. Like I said, I would have no issue under normal circumstances with that match and segment being the main event of a Rampage. But when you had a pay-per-view quality match like that open the show, I might have reversed it. But what can you do? Not a big deal at the end of the day. Not a bad Rampage. We'll see how these go. I mean, right now they're taping them after Dynamite, so the crowd can be mostly still hot. You can still put on some good matches, but they do not have a great time slot on Fridays. And I just wonder how long those ratings will be able to sustain in that 700K range. I feel like they could drop over time. We'll see. And if we'll see Rampage slowly deteriorates into like a WCW Thunder or something like that. Right now, it feels like it's just an extra hour for them to get more storytelling done after Dynamite, which I like. And when they start Elevation Dark at Universal Studios, and that starts getting going, and we just start kind of getting into routine with AEW, I think things will, fall into a place a lot easier. So Rampage was not bad. Smackdown was a lot better. And overall, not a horrible Friday night of wrestling. So that does it for my notes. I needed to be done by the top of the hour or slightly after, and we have beat that time. So let me go over here and knock out any other super chats that are running in. I see at least 3. And then I'll probably be wrapping it up since the audience is very small today on 9/11. But I thank you guys for being here. And on your way out the door today, if you don't mind, tap that thumbs up button for me. I would appreciate it. And just keep in mind, no stream tomorrow. We'll be back Monday for the Raw review. We'll be up on Tuesday, although it won't be live. I'm releasing a video on Tuesday, WCW Great American Bash 1989 review. Very fun show with Flair and Funk headlining. And on Wednesday, we're back for Dynamite watch-alongs every Wednesday. So keep that in mind. If you're not subscribed, fucking do it, man. Subscribe, yo. I'd appreciate it. Spaz Phoenix is back. Speaking of subscribing, go subscribe to Spaz Phoenix's YouTube channel. And thank you for what I believe is the first of 2 super chats. $10 on this one. Thanks, my man. It's a trios of cheap plugs, baby. Oh, you got 3 coming in. My bad. Got a review of Dynamite up. Me and Guapo review Rampage. Jake DeMarco and myself held a funeral for NXT. I want to see that. Cheers, Greg and chat. Thinking of my American friends today. We appreciate that, man. You are not far from where all that went down. You're Toronto? You're in Canada, right? Eastern Canada? So you kind of know. You're in the neighborhood there, and, I always feel like Canadians and Americans are really kind of the same, sort of, and what hurts us hurts y'all, and I appreciate that. It was not a fun day 20 years ago. And thank you for 10 more, my friend. Just my opinion, but it seems Madison Square Garden fans go into a show wanting to like it more than some. Not saying critical fans are bad by any means, but MSG crowds know they're basically in the church of wrestling. I would be too. There's a lot of shit. I have never been to Madison Square Garden for a wrestling show. It's a bucket list. Like, it is something that I would like to do, just because of the fact that I am such a big wrestling fan, and I've watched many, many matches, prior to even Vince owning the company. I mean, Madison Square Garden was it, that's where everything happened. That's where all of Bruno's run was. That's where all of Backlund's run was. A lot of Hogan's run was there, until they started really getting into the 80s and shit. But man, Madison Square Garden was always home. So the crowd should be good. I'd be disappointed if we got a quiet MSG crowd. You want those crowds to be good, because a lot of them too, MSG crowds, I would think there's a good chunk of people there that are WWE diehards. In a Madison Square Garden crowd, you could easily have fathers or grandfathers taking their kids or grandkids to a show in the same building that they went to shows in. That's something you can get there. And a lot of arenas don't have that history anymore because they're all new and they're all, not around anymore. So MSG is kind of the mecca for wrestling, I want to go there myself. Michael Cuomo, thank you, man. Welcome back. Appreciate the $5 from you. Well, Becky did the actual labor part. Seth just got to do the fun part. True that. What is it? Rodney Dangerfield said, the best thing about kids is making them. Also, Becky shouldn't be a heel unless she gets paired with Seth in storyline. See, what is this? They shouldn't be stuff. I mean, I agree this time around. Becky coming in and turning heel was surprising because you thought she would come back to such a babyface reaction. But like Owens And like Edge and some other people, I think she is perfectly capable of doing both. She is a good heel and she's a good babyface. WWE stuck her in a situation where I think it wasn't the right time to turn her heel. Maybe bring her back as a face, let her run for 6 months, and then go heel. But they brought her back as a heel right off the bat. And you know what? She's getting it. Like in the contract signing, she did a good job of keeping the fans behind Bianca. That is not easy to do. So I think Becky is absolutely capable of being a heel just as much as she's being a babyface. I just think maybe the timing of it was maybe off. And if I'm deciding shit, I'm bringing Becky back. I'm letting the fans allow to have her back and cheer her for a while. And then maybe around Rumble time or something, I'm going heel with her. So just not doing it the way they did. But I think I don't ever like to think that some talent isn't capable is a better one than the other, but there's also some that are good at both. And she's one that's good at both. Oh, thank you, Jose. I'm glad I'm helping you catch up with what you missed. Did I say Chuper Chat? My bad. I got marbles in my mouth sometimes. Making sure I didn't miss anything. I hate leaving and then knowing I didn't get a super chat. Oh, man, that Trae Young shit was so good. My God, that crowd, it was so fun to see them go nuts over him. My God, brilliant bringing him out. That was a really smart move, especially for Sami Zayn. I'll probably get out of here in a minute. Deshaun Robinson, Salamonster, said he would like to see Brock versus Roman at Survivor Series. Roman gets the title win, and later they show Brock has a confrontation with Bobby Lashley, kickstarting their match at WrestleMania 38. I'd be totally into that. However, is the plan, do you think, still to do the champion thing? I mean, if you did Brock versus Roman at Survivor Series, they would either have to not do the champion versus champion thing or give Brock the title, the WWE title, and you do the both. I don't know. Brock and Lashley at WrestleMania, I'd be into that. I'm totally fine with that layout there. It just depends on what the plans are for Survivor Series, because apparently Rock might be there, and if Rock is there, that could change up all sorts of shit. So you never know. Oh, I got to get out of here, Zane, but thank you for that super chat. My thoughts on Brian Cage's wife saying he is being misused in AEW. Man, guys got to keep their wives quiet, man, before they get them in trouble. I like Brian Cage a lot, but I don't think he's being misused. I think, he's in a company now that has got a lot of huge talent. Don't forget this guy was only in Impact and stuff before. So, how can you expect him to really be at the top with all the top guys? He's got a top guy look. He's actually a guy that I think would be better off in WWE when you think about it. Vince should look at him and completely ejaculate all over his own face when he looks at Brian Cage. Where in AEW, he's a little bit less noticeable just because of all the good talent you have there. But in terms of look, he's got the great look. I like Brian Cage. I actually do think he's good in the ring. But he doesn't do a whole lot for me from a character perspective or anything like that. So if he wants to do more, then I think he should go out there and do more. But, he is one guy that could be on my radar in terms of keeping an eye on their contract. I have no idea. Everybody in AEW likely has got pretty fresh deals. But him, if he's got something that's coming up in a year or something, I can totally see him maybe saying WWE might be the place for me. Because like how a lot of guys like Danielson and Cole are coming to AEW because everybody there looks like them. Cage might go to WWE because everybody there looks like him. So keep an eye on him. If he feels that way, or if he feels he's not, being used to his potential, he might feel like he wants to jump. And I wouldn't be surprised. He was in Lucha Underground as well. That is true, Jose. Thank you for that. But anyway, I got to roll out of here. I got a busy rest of my Saturday before I take a couple of days off here, so I got to get to work. But I want to thank you for watching this afternoon. Don't forget, we'll be back up here Monday night after Raw for the Raw review. I will be dropping a classic WCW pay-per-view review on Tuesday, and Wednesday we will be here for the AEW Dynamite watch-along. So we're skipping tomorrow, and then you give me 3 straight days in a row. Should be fun. Y'all have a good rest of your Saturday night and a good Sunday tomorrow, and great rest of your weekend, and I'll catch you Monday night for the Raw review. Y'all be good.